Chapter 465. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. The Emperor looked at her bitterly with an expression that said, "I knew it." Empress Dowager Zhuang flatly denied, "I didn't. When can't I go play cards?" The Emperor continued to complain. "Then Imperial Mother doesn't want to go to bed early." Empress Dowager Zhuang, when did your brain become so good? Her habit of getting up early for many years was gone in a year and by Shui Alley. It was quite helpless. In the end, the Emperor promised Empress Dowager Zhuang that he wouldn't attend politics from behind the curtain. After all, he was the Emperor. No matter how much he trusted Empress Dowager Zhuang, he couldn't help but desire to govern alone. This was a very contradictory mentality. Empress Dowager Zhuang had lived to this age. What didn't she understand? It was normal for the ruler of a country to have such a mentality. Otherwise, if everyone was like the Crown Prince, giving unconditional, bottomless indulgence and trust to a person, in the end, if the person next to him wanted the country, would he be willing to give it up? Being an emperor, or a benevolent ruler, wasn't a bad thing. He could be soft where he needed to be, but he couldn't lack the ambition of an emperor. However, the Emperor didn't promise Empress Dowager Zhuang that he wouldn't attend politics from behind the curtain. Empress Dowager Zhuang had to agree to play cards with him 3 or 4 times a month. She also had to set aside time every day to deal with state affairs with him. It was time to spend alone time with Muhu in the afternoon. Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't completely give up power. She just didn't go to court. She still had to play tricks in private. Lulang was promoted, but the money he received wasn't enough to pay the little monk's rent every month. Alas, there were so many children at home. The burden was heavy. Hanlin Academy. Xiao Heng came out from his shift and saw a carriage parked in the alley diagonally across from him. The coachman was an unfamiliar face, and he had never seen the carriage before. However, Xiao Liulong's intuition told him that the owner of the carriage was waiting for him. There was no one around, so he didn't bother to disguise himself. He strode over. The coachman didn't ask and directly put down a wooden stool. He hesitated for a moment. Princess Xinyang opened the door slightly. Xiao Heng was slightly taken aback, and then he stepped into the carriage. He sat down opposite Princess Xinyang. Princess Xinyang said to the coachman, "Let's go to the clinic." "Yes." The coachman waved his whip, and the wheels began to turn. Princess Xinyang's complexion was better than when she had just returned to the capital. Today it was even possible to see a bit of rosy color. She didn't smile much, but the warmth in her eyes almost flowed. "I came to see you," she said. "Yes." A certain someone felt a little uncomfortable. Princess Xinyang smiled and looked at his right foot. "I saw you walking just now. Has your leg recovered?" "Yes, it's done." Xiao Heng answered vaguely and did not hide anything. After being separated for so long, it would be difficult for them to return to their previous intimacy. Moreover, she had hurt him deeply. Princess Xinyang felt even more awkward than Xiao Heng, but she didn't show it on her face. Princess Xinyang smiled and pointed at the cane beside him, asking, "Then why don't you throw this away?" "I'll throw it away in a few days," Xiao Heng said. Oh. Princess Xinyang instantly understood. A mother knew her son best. How could she not understand what he was thinking? Truly, her son had grown up and was no longer under her control. In the past, when he was engaged to Wen Linlang, he had never cared so much about a girl. Princess Xinyang lowered her eyes to hide her smile and changed the topic. "Have you heard about Zhuang Yuheng entering the cabinet?" "I have," Xiao Heng said. Princess Xinyang continued. "It was Grand Tutor Zhuang's idea. He entered the cabinet and started as a 7th-rank secretary. It seemed like a demotion, but in reality his status rose. So his official position had already been decided." Xiao Heng wasn't surprised that Princess Xinyang knew about this inside information. Back when he was still the young Marquis of Zhaodu, he often saw all kinds of jaw-dropping insider information in Princess Xinyang's study. "I heard that Grand Tutor Yuan appreciates you." Princess Xinyang's words had a hidden meaning. Xiao Heng paused. It can't be considered appreciation. He only met me once or twice and said a few words to me. Xiao Heng understood Princess Xinyang's meaning. She was worried that he would feel unbalanced because Zhuang Yuheng had been promoted faster than him. If so, she could also use her connections to get him into the cabinet. I'm doing very well in the Hanlin Academy, Xiao Lulang said bluntly. Some things could be taken shortcuts, but others weren't. In his opinion, getting involved in the cabinet at this time wasn't necessarily a good thing. Princess Xinyang was secretly relieved. Just now, she had been probing Xiao Heng's intentions. When he was young, Xiao Heng was a very competitive child. He wanted to be first in everything. Of course, he really did have the ability, but officialdom was like a battlefield. Sometimes, although you won the battle, you lost the battlefield. Xiao Heng's current temperament was far beyond her expectations. As the two were talking, the sound of galloping horse hooves suddenly came from ahead. Immediately after, it sounded like the rider had run into some stall. Miserable cries rose up one after another. Aya! The horse is out of control. Princess Xinyang's coachman shouted loudly. It wasn't their horse that was out of control, but the other side's. It was rampaging, knocking down passers-by, and had no intention of stopping. Seeing that it was about to hit their carriage, it was too late to turn around. Long Yi flew over, opened the roof of the carriage, and grabbed Princess Xinyang and Xiao Heng. The carriage was smashed apart by the crazy horse. Long Yi put the two people on the roof, then went to grab the coachman who was about to lose his life under the horse's hooves. Long Yi, that child. A child was scared silly. He stood in the middle of the street in a daze, and the crazy horse rushed towards him. Long Yi grabbed the coachman with one hand, and the child with the other. Finally, he rushed to take the child away before the crazy horse could hit them. Princess Xinyang secretly breathed a sigh of relief, but before she could finish, the soles of her feet slipped, and she fell from the roof. Xiao Heng reached out to grab her, but they also fell down together. Long Yi didn't have time to put down the coachman and child. He flashed over, but he only caught Xiao Heng, and Princess Xinyang slipped from his shoulder. At this critical moment, another tall and mighty figure descended from the sky. He hugged Princess Xinyang's soft waist, and slowly descended from the sky. This person had a devastatingly beautiful face, and a pair of soul-stirring eyes. He was Marquis Xianping, who was hailed by the emperor as the face of Zhao country. Marquis Xianping stood there with Princess Xinyang in his arms. His posture was handsome. A burst of enthusiastic cheers erupted from the crowd. Marquis Xianping raised his eyebrows and smiled. Princess, long time no see. Princess Xinyang's face was cold. Are you done acting handsome? If you're done, then let this princess down. TSK unromantic. Marquis Xianping curled his lips with regret, and put Princess Xinyang down. That crazy horse was already under Changjing's control. Tonight, Changjing wanted to eat roasted horse meat. Marquis Xianping waved his hand at the crowd. Okay, disperse, disperse. Don't look. Haven't you seen a hero saving a beauty? Everyone's mouths twitched. Although it was the truth. Why did you say it yourself? Could you be any more shameless? The crowd finally dispersed. Marquis Xianping looked at Princess Xinyang, and then at the smashed carriage. He clicked his tongue. Looks like the princess can only sit in this marquis carriage. Changjing. Changjing drove a luxurious and flashy carriage over. Princess Xinyang didn't get on. She walked forward and came to an unfamiliar carriage. She planned to take out money to hire the other party's carriage. Marquis Xianping looked at her with his arms crossed. That's also this marquis carriage. Princess Xinyang walked forward again, and chose an inconspicuous carriage. It's also this marquis carriage. It's also this marquis carriage. Aya, it's this marquis carriage again. Princess Xinyang. Did the surnamed Xiao contract for an entire street of carriages? Digression. Oh, you're not stingy this time? The carriage drivers trembled. Can you let us go? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg com/89642_896422826/1098695119. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bkuj mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 466. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels can be read for free. There are novels with connotations that can't be found online here. Princess Xinyang finally got into the first luxurious and flashy carriage with a dark face. Marquis Xianping also got into the carriage and threw the whip in his hand to Changjing. Be steady. The princess doesn't like bumps. Oh. Changjing took the whip and lashed it down, causing the carriage to jolt. Marquis Xianping. The couple sat down in the carriage. Marquis Xianping looked at Princess Xinyang calmly and said with a faint smile, I went to Fengdu Mountain to find you, but you didn't want to see me. Instead, you ran back to the capital. Why? Are you hiding from me? Why should I hide from you? Princess Xinyang said mildly. Marquis Xianping's lips twitched, revealing a roguish smile. Come on, Qin Fengwan. Ever since Xiaoheng died, you've been hiding from me. Sometimes I even suspect that the fire was set by you. You don't have the face to face me at all? Princess Xinyang turned her face away. Heh. Marquis Xianping looked at the roof of the carriage and said nonchalantly, Enough. Let your whatever, take Xiaoheng down. He's flying around in the sky. Even if he's not tired, I'm tired for my son. After Xiaoheng was rescued by Long Yi, or to be exact, after Marquis Xianping appeared, Xiaoheng had Long Yi take him away. However, Marquis Xianping's seemingly casual words had many important points. First, he knew about Long Yi. Second, he had already determined that Xiao Lulang was Xiaoheng. Long Yi had always been a secret guard in the princess's residence. It was only after going to Fengdu Mountain that Long Yi gradually came into the light. During this time, Long Yi had never met Marquis Xianping. In other words, Marquis Xianping already knew about Long Yi's existence before the fire at the Imperial College. Since he even knew about the most powerful Long Yi, then the other Dragon Shadow Guards naturally wouldn't be a problem. As for when he knew, there was no way to know. Perhaps it was 4 years ago or even earlier. As for the second matter, judging from the situation in the capital, Princess Xinyang guessed that Marquis Xianping had gone to Fengdu Mountain to ask her to come back and identify Xiaoheng. Now that she had appeared in the same carriage as Xiaoheng, he already had the answer without her personally telling him. Marquis Xianping said, Changjing, go and catch those two flying in the sky. Changjing, who was driving, leaped into the air. After a while, Changjing returned to the carriage with a swollen face. I can't win. Changjing felt wronged, but she didn't say anything. Marquis Xianping snorted. You deserve it. I'll let you drive recklessly next time. Changjing's face was full of black lines. So you were just taking revenge on me for bumping off the carriage? Changjing was a little emotional. He really wanted to drive the carriage until it flew, but he couldn't beat Marquis Xianping, that old fox. This was a very sad story. Inside the carriage, Marquis Xianping leaned lazily against the wall of the carriage. Behind him was a soft and thick pillow. His slender legs were crossed, and one hand was on the armrest while the other was gently placed on his leg. His slender fingers tapped on his knee. Princess Xinyang sat across from him with an indifferent expression, and didn't say a word. Marquis Xianping smiled lightly. Qin Fengwan, do you want to say it yourself, or do I have to ask you one question at a time? Princess Xinyang asked. What do you want me to say? Marquis Xianping said, everything. Princess Xinyang looked at him. Why don't you first tell me what happened with the crazy horse just now? Marquis Xianping said. What? You suspect that I did it? I'm not that bored. Princess Xinyang didn't say anything. Marquis Xianping narrowed his eyes at her. Wait, are you suspecting that someone tried to assassinate you or Xiaoheng? Princess Xinyang slowly exhaled and looked at him without blinking. Before I answer all your questions, why don't you answer one of mine first? Who was that female slave from the Yen Kingdom? After long he sent Xiaoheng back to Jadewater Alley. He immediately left. Before he left, he met little Jing Kong, and exchanged small manly punches with little Jing Kong. Lulang! Just as Xiaoheng was about to enter the room, he heard someone calling him from behind. He turned around and said politely, "Auntie, what's the matter?" Auntie handed him a jar with a smile. "This is the pickled vegetables I just made. Take it." "No need. I haven't finished the ones you gave me last time." Xiaoheng declined. Auntie stuffed the jar into his arms and said, not allowing him to refuse, take it, take it. You have a lot of family members, so you can finish it all at once. Besides, it's just a jar of pickled vegetables. It's not that valuable." Xiaoheng was not good at rejecting such pure kindness, so he accepted it shyly. "Thank you, Auntie He." As soon as Auntie He left, Uncle Zhao from next door came over again. He called him Lulang and gave him a basket of eggs. He said that Gu Jiao made salted duck eggs last time, and gave some to the neighbors. He didn't have anything to give in return, so these eggs were laid by his own chicken. That's right. Since little Jing Kong persisted in running chickens for a year, Pushui Alley also started to raise poultry one after another. Yaoshe called out to him from inside. "He's here." Xiaoheng carried the jar and the basket into the house. His family did not change the way they addressed Xiaoheng. Xiaoheng felt that this was also very good. He did not have a courtesy name, so in the future Lulang would be his courtesy name. He was Xiaoheng, and he was also Xiao Lulang. He would finish Xiao Liulang's unfinished life for him. He would see the scenery that Xiao Lulang had not seen before. Xiaoheng's clothes were too small, so Yaoshe bought new ones for him. The last time he tried them on, the sleeves were a little narrow, so Yaoshe changed them. Xiaoheng tried them on again. They fit him very well. He thanked Yaoshe and told Yaoshe about how Auntie He and Elder Zhao had come to deliver things. They're too polite." Yaoshe did not know whether to laugh or cry. She asked Yuya, or to keep the things properly. Xiaoheng returned to the west room. Little Jing Kong had finished school early today. At this time he was sticking out his little butt and plunging into his big box. He threw out the things inside with a swish, and no one knew what treasure he was looking for. Xiaoheng felt a headache coming on. He had just cleaned up for him the day before yesterday. Xiaoheng poked a certain someone's little butt with his walking stick. "What are you doing?" Little Jing Kong stopped rummaging and pulled his little head out of the box. He turned around and looked at Xiaoheng while panting. He said disappointedly, "I knew it's a bad brother-in-law." Jiao Jiao would not poke his little butt. "Why is it so messy again?" "I'm looking for something. Jiao Jiao's birthday is coming soon. I want to give Jiao Jiao a surprise." Gu Jiao's birthday was next month. There were less than 40 days left. Xiaoheng looked at the little guy's sweaty face and suddenly said mischievously, "What a coincidence. I want to give Jiao Jiao a surprise too." Little Jing Kong patted his little chest and said, "Then my surprise will be bigger than yours." Xiaoheng raised his eyebrows. "That's not necessarily true." Little Jing Kong put his hands on his waist and stamped his feet. "Jiao Jiao likes me the most." Xiaoheng curled his lips. "But she'll definitely like the surprise I give her the most." Little Jing Kong stared at him. You, what's your surprise?" The little guy suddenly became nervous. Princess Xinyang was right. Little Jing Kong was very similar to Xiaoheng when he was young. For example, their strong desire to win was almost the same. Xiaoheng bent down and looked at him at eye level. He imitated his usual behavior, and proudly shook his little head. "I'm not telling you, ha ha ha." So angry. Little Jing Kong secretly clenched his little fists. He would not lose to his bad brother-in-law. The biggest surprise must be the one he gave Jiao Jiao. There was a military book that said, "Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will win 100 battles." He had to know his bad brother-in-law's surprise before he could defeat him. Where did his bad brother-in-law hide his surprise? He would definitely find it. In the carriage, Princess Xinyang finished telling the whole truth. Marquis Xianping's face was extremely cold. He was not someone who often got angry, but he was a little unable to hold it in. He forced himself to calm down. He did not have a habit of getting angry at women. "Qin Fengwan, Do you think that this marquis is especially useless? That I can't even protect my own son? We haven't even fought. How do you know that I can't beat him? Princess Xinyang said. Look, I knew you would have this reaction. You didn't meet them. No matter how much I say, you will only think that I am exaggerating. Alright, just treat it as me hating Aheng and not wanting to see her, so I deliberately sent her away. Marquis Xianping frowned. What do you mean just treat it as me? If it's true, then it's true. If it's not, then it's not. You scholars like to beat around the bush. You have 7 or 8 meanings in one sentence. I don't understand. Princess Xinyang turned her face away and said, If you don't understand, then forget it. Either way, that woman was provoked by you. It was you who caused Aheng to suffer, and also caused my son's death. I won't defend Xiaoheng's matter, but your son's death. Marquis Xianping paused. He seemed to have realized that there was something wrong with the way he addressed her. After pondering for a moment, he said, Your son and mine really were not caused by this marquis. I'm afraid this debt cannot be counted on this marquis. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896428226/10986828525 HTML Genius remembered this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 467. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. Princess Xinyang's tone was as cold as ice. Why can't you be blamed? If the woman you brought back didn't attract the assassins, how could my son have been poisoned? Marquis Xuanping's frown deepened. You think the group of assassins who poisoned him was after her? Wasn't it? Princess Xinyang asked back. Marquis Xianping fell silent. Princess Xinyang sneered. You don't dare to speak? Haven't you always hated being the scapegoat? Tell me, how did I wrongly accuse you? Marquis Xianping looked at her with a complicated expression. Qin Fengwan, will this affect your relationship with Xiaoheng? What do you mean? Princess Xinyang didn't understand. Marquis Xuanping's gaze was deep. Do you think that group of assassins who came after his mother will make you resent him? Without waiting for Princess Xinyang's reply, Marquis Xianping continued. I'm not a good person to begin with. It wasn't easy for me to be a human, but I was wronged. Qin Fengwan, you asked yourself. No matter what the result is, don't blame me. Princess Xinyang felt an ominous premonition rising in her heart. Marquis Xianping looked at her, his gaze solemn and cold. Qin Fengwan, we agreed that you wouldn't fall in love with me, and it's best if I don't like you. On the night of our wedding, you told me not to touch you and that we would always be husband and wife in name and not interfere with each other. But then, I touched you and you got pregnant. Let me ask you, do you want this child? If you do, he'll be my legitimate son. I, Xiaoji, will only have one legitimate son in my life, and that's your child. If you don't want it, I won't say anything. The stomach is yours, so it's up to you to give birth to it. You know very well whether I want this child or not. Back then, the princess's residence and Marquis Xuanping's residence were heavily guarded. It was even more impenetrable than the imperial palace. Not even a fly could fly in. Let me ask you, why would assassins poison the child? Princess Xinyang's eyes trembled. You, Marquis Xianping sneered and nodded. That's right, that's what I meant. There's a spy. There's a traitor around you. Princess Xinyang's expression changed. That's impossible. I have the dragon shadow guards guarding the 2 children day and night. How could they have the chance to poison them? Marquis Xianping's sneer froze on his lips and his eyes turned cold. That's right. You have the dragon shadow guards guarding your children. Who would dare to poison them? Think about it yourself. Princess Xinyang's mind exploded like a thunderclap. Dragon Shadow Guard. No, that can't be. Why would the Dragon Shadow Guard poison her child? This conjecture was too bold, and could even be said to be absurd. She laughed to herself. However, not long after, her smile gradually froze on her face. Marquis Xianping was right. At that time, the Marquis Xianping Manor and the Princess Manor were indeed heavily guarded. Not to mention outsiders, even the Emperor's Dragon Shadow Guards might not be able to sneak in without alerting anyone. Because she also had the Dragon Shadow Guard. In that situation, other than the Dragon Shadow Guard herself, no one else had the chance to make a move. However, she trusted the Dragon Shadow Guard too much, so she never considered this flaw. Princess Xinyang resisted the trembling of her body and tried to grasp the last possibility. Why, isn't it that group of people? Isn't that group of people suspicious at all? Marquis Xianping said. When they came, and when they targeted Xiaoheng, I really don't know. Because Xiaoheng was rarely by his side. When that group of people targeted Xiaoheng, he wasn't there, so he didn't realize it. He said seriously, but I can tell you clearly that when the two children were in trouble, that group of people had not yet arrived in Zhao country. Princess Xinyang looked into his eyes. Why are you so sure? Marquis Xianping met her examining gaze without dodging. She said it herself. She said that if she didn't die, she would attract that group of people. When he said this, there wasn't a trace of emotion in his eyes. Princess Xinyang moved her eyes away. What she said before she died? Yes, Marquis Xianping said. Then is she really dead? Princess Xinyang asked. Marquis Xianping sighed. In any case, I buried her myself. Princess Xinyang smiled bitterly. You even buried her yourself. That's rare. Marquis Xianping pursed his lips and didn't argue with her. He looked deeply at her. She didn't implicate Xiaoqing, and Xiaoqing didn't die because of her and Xiaoheng. Princess Xinyang's focus was on that name. You still remember his name? Marquis Xianping paused with a complicated expression and sighed. How could I not remember? I chose the name. Have you forgotten? Princess Xinyang cast a sidelong glance at him. That's because you only recognize that character, right? Marquis Xianping. After being married for so many years, could she give him some face? Marquis Xianping's feelings for Xiaoheng actually came very slowly, or more accurately, it came very complicated. At first, he recognized Xiaoheng as his legitimate son. When Princess Xinyang wanted to raise Xiaoheng by her side, he refused in his heart. But Princess Xinyang had just experienced the pain of losing her son, and he couldn't deprive her of her right to be a mother at that point. In the past, he really did treat Xiaoheng coldly. He wasn't a competent father, but Princess Xinyang was an excellent mother. She taught Xiaoheng very well. Aside from not practicing martial arts, he became very elegant. This was the opposite of his desire to teach a Xiaoji who could kill in all directions. This child wouldn't even kill a chicken, let alone kill in all directions. I've said all that needs to be said. You can think about the rest yourself. After Marquis Xianping finished speaking, he lifted the curtain and had Chongjing stop the carriage. He sat in the carriage behind and left. Are we going to the princess's residence? Chongjing asked. Princess Xinyang was immersed in the terrifying storm of chaos, and didn't hear Chongjing's words. Yes, okay. Chongjing said to herself and drove the carriage to the princess's residence. The princess's residence still retained its original appearance, including the 2 delivery rooms. She treated Marquis Xianping with respect and didn't interfere with each other. This was the agreement before the wedding. Marquis Xianping said that he touched her, but that was his way of saying that he took responsibility for everything. But actually she couldn't blame him. She drank too much wine and took the wrong medicine. Marquis Xianping looked at her and asked seriously, Qin Fengwan, do you know what you're doing? He had a reaction, but he was very restrained and calm. Reaction was instinct and restraint was a choice. She said, I know, Xiaoji. I know. Marquis Xianping actually didn't bring that female slave from the Yin kingdom to her. That female slave came by herself. She clearly remembered the first sentence she said to her. I heard you're a princess. Can I live in your princess's residence? She was a woman who exuded a wild power, making people think of unruly horses on the grasslands. She had wheat-colored skin, deep facial features, and rough skin that had been tempered by the wind and sand. However, her eyebrows were exceptionally exquisite and deep. The women of the Zhao kingdom were beautiful with fair skin. When Princess Xinyang saw her, she realized for the first time that beauty had nothing to do with skin color. Her Zhao kingdom language wasn't very good. After explaining for a while, Princess Xinyang finally understood what she meant. It turned out that old Madame Xiao was overjoyed when she found out that she was pregnant. She was afraid that something would happen to her, so she sent 17 or 18 servant girls to serve her. She was very annoyed. I'm Marquis Xianping's wife. I know, but you don't love him. That's why you can live in my princess residence with your belly sticking out? Princess Xinyang didn't know whether to say that she didn't know what was good for her, or that she was extremely daring. In the end, Princess Xinyang still let her live in. There was no other reason than that she was a female slave from the Yan kingdom, and knew many things about the Yan kingdom. Princess Xinyang was thirsty for knowledge. They got along very freely. She was different from the women of the Zhao kingdom. She had a different kind of free and straightforward character, and didn't have many tricks up her sleeve. Thus, Princess Xinyang never expected that she would kill someone else's son in order to let her son live. But on second thought, wasn't this something she would do? She really was a ruthless and decisive woman. No wonder she could be brought back by Marquis Xianping. Marquis Xianping was dissolute and unruly outside, but he still abided by the rules in the residence. He wouldn't easily touch the servant girls in the residence. Old Madame Xiao had cried, made a fuss, and threatened to hang herself to get the 2 illegitimate sons. He also never brought back any woman. Xiao Heng's mother was the only one. He also wouldn't let other women offend her. There was once a courtesan who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth who blocked her carriage, and said she was willing to go home with her and be her cow or horse. She only asked to be able to wait by her and Marquis Xianping's side. The next day, that courtesan disappeared from the capital. After thinking about so many things, Princess Xinyang's emotions finally calmed down. She began to seriously consider the possibility of the dragon shadow guards betraying her. The answer was almost impossible. If the dragon shadow guards could betray their master, then they wouldn't be the dragon shadow guards anymore. The dragon shadow guards were given to her by the late emperor. They only listened to her and the late emperor's orders. But before she and Marquis Xianping were engaged, the late emperor had already passed away. Could it be that he gave the dragon shadow guards the order to poison the 2 children from underground? How did he do it? A dream? Wait a minute. There was one person who wasn't the late emperor's dragon shadow guards. Long Yi. Just as this thought flashed through Princess Xinyang's mind, she eliminated it. At that time, she had sent Long Yi to Fengdu Mountain to quell the chaos. He only returned when Xiao Heng was almost 1 month old. He simply didn't have the opportunity to commit the crime. So, was it really done by the other 4 dragon shadow guards? But she couldn't figure it out. She didn't give them the order to poison the 2 children. The late emperor even more wouldn't. In this world, if there wasn't a third person who could also give them orders, then the late emperor really crawled out from under the coffin? It couldn't be that the late emperor, on his deathbed, had them plot against her and Marquis Xianping's son. The late emperor clearly knew that it was impossible for her and Marquis Xianping to have a child. Her thoughts came to an abrupt end. Princess Xinyang was stunned. She seemed to have inadvertently thought of something. At that time, Marquis Xianping was still young, but the late emperor saw his potential. He was the youngest marquis of Zhao country, and was personally conferred the title by the late emperor. The late emperor regarded him as his right-hand man. But under the late emperor's regard, he was firmly on guard against Marquis Xianping. The late emperor had secretly arranged the marriage between her and Marquis Xianping. Why secretly? Because if the late emperor could live for a long time, he planned to personally kill Marquis Xianping. If he died early, then she would kill Marquis Xianping. But at the same time, the late emperor also understood that Zhao country was in danger, and couldn't do without Marquis Xianping. So the late emperor decided to use Marquis Xianping to the greatest extent. As long as he didn't rebel, he would be allowed to live. If he had any thoughts of rebellion, he would be immediately killed. But Marquis Xianping was extremely vigilant. Normal assassins couldn't get close to him. The late emperor thought of a honey trap. Of all the princesses, the late emperor had chosen her because he knew that she would never be moved by Marquis Xianping. Only a person who wouldn't be moved by Marquis Xianping could kill him at any time. But the late emperor was born in the royal family and had been the emperor for so many years. How could he not understand that the affairs of the world were unpredictable? What if her heart was moved? The late emperor didn't allow her to give birth to Marquis Xianping's child. He didn't allow her to have an unclear and unbreakable bond with Marquis Xianping. Directly killing Marquis Xianping wouldn't work either. The country needed him. The only prerequisite for killing Marquis Xianping was that he had thoughts of rebellion. As long as he didn't rebel, he could live. But her child couldn't live. The Dragon Shadow Guard's initial target was little Xiaoheng. Unfortunately, even though little Xiaoheng was born half a month earlier, he was about the same size as little Xiaoheng when he was born. The Dragon Shadow Guard must have made a mistake the first time. The second time, he accurately fed the poison into little Xiaoheng's mouth. Princess Xianyang didn't know why he used poison and not something else. It was all the late emperor's consideration. Perhaps it was to prevent the investigation of the Dragon Shadow Guard, or perhaps the late emperor left his grandson with the last bit of mercy and left him with a decent corpse. Princess Xianyang's strength was sucked out. Her legs weakened and she fell to the ground. Princess! Eugene flew in. She didn't wait for Princess Xianyang's return at Jade Water Alley. Instead, someone from the princess's residence sent a message saying that the princess had returned, but the situation seemed a bit off. She hurried over. Princess, what's wrong? Eugene knelt in front of her and asked while holding her slightly trembling shoulders. Princess Xianyang's face was bloodless. Her eyes were empty, as if they were filled with endless sorrow, but she couldn't cry a single tear. Princess Xianyang said with dull eyes, I thought that when father gave the Dragon Shadow Guard to me, he at least trusted me and thought I was the only one who could bear this heavy responsibility. Eugene supported her with heartache. Princess Xianyang laughed self-deprecatingly. But in the end he still didn't trust me. He was on guard against Marquis Xianping, and on guard against me. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896422826/1098688080. HTML Genius remembered this site's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 468. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. After Marquis Xianping got into the other carriage, the coachman asked him where he was going, but he didn't say anything. His mood was terrible, so he didn't want to reveal his emotions in front of Princess Xianyang when he got off the carriage. He was a man. No matter how angry he was, he could only hold it in and not vent it on a woman. The coachman didn't have the guts like Chang Jing to take him to the princess's residence or Marquis Xianping's residence on his own. They just wandered aimlessly on the streets, circling the imperial city again and again. Only when the two horses were about to see stars did Marquis Xianping's calm voice finally come from the carriage. Go to Jishui Alley. The coachman secretly sighed in relief. The sky was almost dark. Finally, they didn't have to wait until dawn. Marquis Xianping's mood slowly calmed down. When the emperor had arranged a marriage between him and Qin Fengwan, he was actually very surprised. His younger sister had already entered the palace as the empress, and the Xiao family was already firmly tied to the emperor's boat. There was really no need for the emperor to tie the knot. Moreover, his reputation wasn't good. It would be wrong for a princess to marry him. At that time, the emperor didn't tell him that everything was the late emperor's last will. He thought about it and wondered if the princess had taken a fancy to him. It wasn't impossible. After all, he was handsome. He grew up in the military camp and hung out with a group of men all day long. His father didn't teach him how to treat his wife well, but he vaguely knew that his mother wasn't happy. There were so many concubines at home who came to his mother to set the rules. His mother looked impressive, but she was actually very bitter inside. He had seen Princess Xingyang before. When a man looked at a woman, it would be a lie to say that he didn't look at her face, especially at first sight. Princess Xingyang was very beautiful, so beautiful that he couldn't describe it. No man wouldn't be moved by such a woman. He sincerely wanted to marry her. When he went through the wedding ceremony with her, he was still happily thinking that from now on, his Xiao Ji would also have a family. He was wearing a bright red wedding robe and happily lifted her veil, but she used an ice-cold dagger to point at his heart. F***CK. Marquis Xianping's emotions, which had finally calmed down, surged again. He tugged at his collar, and a trace of irritation flashed across his brows. Not there yet? The coachman was startled by this seemingly calm, but actually angry tone. He hurriedly said, "Quick, quick, quick, quick. Don't go to Jadewater Alley," Marquis Xianping said. "Ah. Then where are we going? Aren't you changing your mind a little too quickly?" It was not that Marquis Xianping did not want to see Xiao Heng, but he was a little irritated at the moment, and was afraid that he would scare his son. After thinking about it, he wanted to find that old monkey, Gu Chao, to fight or something. When they arrived, they found out that old monkey had gone on a long trip. He didn't tell them where he was going. It seemed that he was going on a sightseeing tour. It was impossible to go sightseeing, not in this lifetime. The old monkey must have been sent by the emperor to do something. Marquis Xianping thought about it, and obediently returned to Marquis Xianping's residence. He called Steward Lu over, and listened to Steward Lu recount the recent events in the capital. Princess Xingyang had already mentioned the King of Ning. Old concubine Jing had learned about it from Steward Lu. Old concubine Jing had announced to the public that she had died suddenly. Steward Lu was in contact with Cunning Palace, so he naturally knew the inside story. Old concubine Jing was a remnant of the previous dynasty. She was the one who had ordered Xiao Heng to be poisoned when he was young. She was the one who had instigated the relationship between Empress Dowager Zhuang and the emperor. She was also the one who had planned Princess Ning En's marriage. Poor Princess Ning, and to fall into the hands of such a vicious mother. Steward Lu sighed deeply. Old concubine Jing's death had caused a stir in the capital for a while, but it had cooled down a long time ago. This was the first time Marquis Xianping had heard of it, so he should have been shocked. However, he had discovered that the old chancellor was targeting old concubine Jing before he left the capital, so he had more or less guessed that the old concubine wasn't as simple as she seemed. He just hadn't guessed that she had something to do with the remnants of the previous dynasty. According to Empress Xiao, old concubine Jing had been in close contact with the frontier fortress over the years. They all thought that she was communicating with Princess Ning, but in fact, she was contacting the remnants of the previous dynasty. The emperor had ordered Tang Yueshan to go to the frontier fortress as an imperial envoy. On the surface, he was there to visit Princess Ning, but in reality, he was there to clean up the remnants of the previous dynasty. The credit should have gone to my brother, but he's not in the capital. That's why His Majesty appointed Tang Ming. These were Empress Zhao's exact words. Marquis Xianping had no interest in credit. He was good at war, but that didn't mean he liked it. Some things were responsibilities and missions that had to be shouldered. If he couldn't protect his country, the country behind him would be destroyed, and his family would be destroyed. Empress Xiao didn't know about the old marquis, but she didn't need to say anything. Marquis Xianping had guessed it himself. He must have gone north with Tang Yueshan. Tang Yueshan was a man who rejoiced in grandiose achievements. There was only one reason why he would allow the old monkey to travel with him. The old monkey wasn't going to war. Are they going to rescue Princess Ningen? Marquis Xianping rubbed his chin thoughtfully. If the prince consort was also a pawn of old concubine Jing, then Princess Ning An's situation wasn't optimistic. Marquis Xianping couldn't help but frown at the thought of Princess Ning An. Back then, Empress Dowager Zhuang seemed to want to set him up with Princess Ning An, but that girl was always like a frightened rabbit. He didn't like it. He was a man who didn't know how to be gentle with women. He couldn't be tainted by such a weak rabbit. All right, you can leave, Marquis Xianping said tiredly. Marquis. Steward Lu smiled. Are we still going to bring the young duke back? Empress Xiao had contacted Marquis Xianping through Steward Lu. So Steward Lu already knew that the illegitimate child was the young duke. Marquis Xianping glanced at him coolly. You haven't brought him back? Steward Lu was rendered mute on the spot. He had gone to bring him back from the countryside, but he hadn't brought him back to the manor even after he'd gone to the capital. He hadn't known that he was the young duke, so he hadn't respected him. It was quite scary when he thought about it. Marquis Xianping had planned to rest for a while, but now he stood up and walked towards the door. I have my own plans for this. Don't get involved. You don't have to go to Jadewater Alley in the future. Marquis, you don't plan to announce the young duke's identity for the time being? Yes. Marquis Xianping would have announced it a long time ago, but this time he was extra cautious. He wasn't afraid of those people, but he had lost Xiaoheng once. He couldn't lose him a second time. When he returned to the capital, he naturally had to report to the emperor. The emperor also expressed his regret that his son had killed Marquis Xianping's son. Marquis Xianping thought about it and decided not to tell the emperor. The emperor had taken away his mining rights before, so he was a person who held a grudge. Dusk fell. Marquis Gu finally got off work. The manor that Empress Dowager Zhuang had ordered was in the final stage, and would be completed soon. In fact, he had ordered almost everything. He didn't need to supervise the work every day. However, the demand for bellows had increased recently. In addition, there were several farming tools from the people: water wheels, threshing machines, and grain elevators. The Ministry of Works was busy sending people to learn. With the bellows as an example, this time the Ministry of Works didn't dare to be arrogant anymore. They humbly asked the farmers from the people for advice. Speaking of which, it was strange. Were farmers all so awesome these days? The water wheels were much better than those of the imperial court. The water wheel technology of the Zhao state was also imported from the Liang state. The Liang state had the most advanced water wheels and axles. Combined with ponds, they could achieve a certain level of low water flow and high water flow. However, this kind of civilian water wheel took the advantages of vertical and horizontal wheels to the extreme. The height of water lifting was greatly increased. Even in places with steep terrain, the water flow could be low and high. Marquis Gu had been studying this all day. He hadn't had time to look at the threshing machines and grain elevators. He didn't know which talented person among the people had made such amazing things. The Ministry of Works had already sent people to investigate. Marquis Gu entered the courtyard. His family didn't seem to be there. Only 7 chickens were working in the vegetable garden to catch insects. There isn't even an old woman guarding the door. I asked 2 servants to come over, but they refused. Marquis Gu complained. After he finished complaining, he realized that a chicken had swaggered to his feet. He stopped and looked at the chicken. The chicken also looked at him. This was Little Chi. However, Marquis Gu didn't recognize it. In his eyes, it was just a chicken just like the other chickens. Speaking of which, it was really funny. Who would bring their chickens to the capital? Were there not many chickens in the capital? Thinking of this stingy behavior, Marquis Gu felt particularly embarrassed. His daughter was raised in the countryside, and his son-in-law wasn't any better. He was really worried that the little guy in Yao Shi's womb would be led astray by them. Thinking of the little guy that was about to be born, Marquis Gu was in a rare good mood. He looked down at the chicken at his feet. He thought that the chicken wanted to peck him, but it didn't move for a long time. After a while it swaggered off again. Then Marquis Gu sadly discovered that it had pooped a pile of chicken poop on his shoes. Marquis Gu. Digression. Recently there have been more. Can the monthly votes also increase? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896428226/1098433327. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 469. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more fully. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. In the West Room, Xiao Heng was tidying up the mess in Little Jing Kong. Ever since he heard that he had a bigger surprise for Gu Jiao, the little fellow believed that his surprise was hidden in the room. The little fellow rummaged through the boxes and cabinets, but he wouldn't put it back. This was his problem. His family had scolded him several times. Of course, every time he agreed, he would forget about it immediately. Perhaps he didn't forget, but it was as if he didn't clean up at all. Every time, he or Gu Jiao had to clean up again. Xiao Heng was so focused on cleaning up that he didn't know that Marquis Gu had come to the house, nor did he know that he was bullied by his chickens. Brother-in-law. Suddenly, there was a soft call from the door. It sounded a little cautious, but also a little happy. Xiao Heng had just picked up the golden abacus in Little Jing Kong. When he heard the voice, he turned around and looked at him. Yen, what's wrong? There were no classes in Qinghe Academy today. Gu Xiaoshan went to Master Lu and Nan Xiang's house. Gu Yan said that he was not feeling well and stayed. Gu Yan stood at the door with his hands behind his back. He looked a little reserved. Since Gu Yan came to the house, it was the first time that he had shown this kind of, well, Xiao Heng wanted to say that he was shy, but he felt that Gu Yan wouldn't be so thin-skinned. Besides, what was there to be shy about in front of him? It wasn't the first day they met. Can I come in? Gu Yan asked. Even the tone of his voice had become cautious. Wasn't this attitude change a little too big? Xiao Heng looked at Gu Yan strangely and said, "It's okay, come in. Do you have homework that you can't do?" Among the 3 boys in the family, Xiao Heng interacted with Little Jing Kong the most. Firstly, they slept in the same room. Secondly, Little Jing Kong was more talkative. Thirdly, Little Jing Kong had the most homework in tutoring. She didn't interact much with Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoshan. Basically, they came over at this hour to ask about homework. Gu Yan's answer was out of Xiao Heng's expectations. He shook his head and said, "I have something to show brother-in-law." "What?" Xiao Heng asked. Gu Yan walked up to Xiao Heng and hesitated for a moment. Then he took out the fist he had hidden behind his back and opened it to reveal a jade thumb ring with a warm texture. If Gu Jiao was here, she would definitely recognize that this was the jade thumb ring that she had accidentally put in her sleeve when she first resuscitated Gu Yan. Gu Yan treasured this jade thumb ring very much and didn't allow anyone to touch it. Gu Yan flew into a rage when Gu Jinyu accidentally touched it once. Gu Jiao was special. Gu Jiao touching it was equivalent to touching it himself, so Gu Yan didn't mind. Xiao Heng looked at the jade thumb ring in his hand and didn't know what he meant. Gu Yan took in his expression, and a trace of disappointment flashed across his eyes. He lowered his eyes and said bitterly, "You really don't remember?" "I remember that it's your jade thumb ring," Xiao Heng said. He didn't know if he was right. Gu Yan said sullenly, "No, it's yours." "Mine?" Xiao Heng was surprised. There were 2 meanings to this sentence. One was that it originally belonged to him. The other was that Gu Yan intended to give this jade thumb ring to him. Combined with the series of changes in Gu Yan's expression after he entered the room, Xiao Heng felt that it was unlikely to be the second meaning. Otherwise, Gu Yan wouldn't have said, "You really don't remember?" "Is it for you?" Xiao Heng asked. He paused and said, "When we were young?" After becoming Xiao Lulang, he didn't remember giving Gu Yan any jewelry. Then, it could only be before he and Gu Yan left the capital. If he remembered correctly, Guyan went to the hot spring villa in Yuzhou when he was 4. It was before I went to the hot spring villa, Guyan said gloomily. My older brother didn't play with me, so I ran out of the house alone. He left the house by ditching the servants and crawling out of the house. This way of leaving the house was a little embarrassing. Guyan automatically skimmed over it. I got lost, and then I met you. Getting lost was what he felt at the time. Now that he thought about it, he didn't really get lost. He didn't even run out of the back alley of Marquis Ding An's house. Xiaoheng pointed at the jade thumb ring in his hand. Then I gave you this? Guyan shook his head and said in a small voice. You didn't give it to me. I wanted it. Xiaoheng. I couldn't tell that you would ask strangers for things when you were young. Guyan. I secretly ran out of the house. I wanted to go back, but I couldn't find the way. I cried loudly. You passed by and had the servants stop the carriage. You said that the child was cute. Kidnap him and let him be my younger brother. Xiaoheng, that's not right. Isn't this your short history? How did it become my dark history? I don't have a hobby of kidnapping children. Don't speak nonsense. Xiaoheng lightly coughed. I should just be joking, right? Guyan continued to sullenly say. Then your servants carried me away. Xiaoheng embarrassedly. You must have been very scared at the time, right? Guyan shook his head. No, I was very happy. But after a while, you regretted it. You said that I wasn't fun and sent me back. Xiaoheng had no recollection of this matter. Xiaoheng was only 7 years old that year. Although he had reached the age where he could remember things, carrying Guyan away was just a spur of the moment. He didn't really take it to heart. He saw so many people every day. How could he remember a child that he had only played with for a short while? Guyan was different. He had a weak body since he was young. Madame Yao and Marquis Gu raised him very carefully and never allowed him to leave the house. The number of children he had seen could be counted on one hand. Xiaoheng gave him candy, toys, and even gave him such a beautiful jade thumb ring. He naturally remembered the other person deeply in his heart. However, so many years had passed. His small brain could not remember the other person's appearance and silhouette. He only remembered that he was called Xiaoheng. The young Marquis of Zhaodu. This was all thanks to Xiaoheng's fame. He would often hear about him from the servants. It could be considered as helping him review his memories. Xiaoheng really did not know that he and Guyan had such an experience. Even though he did not believe in fate, he could not help but sigh that fate was indeed a wonderful thing. The two's conversation was interrupted by the sound of chickens and dogs in the courtyard. The two opened the window and saw that Marquis Gu had come. Furthermore, he was fighting with their family's dog, 7 chickens, and a Hai Dong Qing. Marquis Gu was a martial artist. It was not to the extent that he could not kill a dog and a few chickens. However, the dog was his son's pet, and the chickens were poultry that Madame Yao raised every day. He did not have any misgivings about this bird, but this bird was too good at flying. He could not catch it. Xiaoheng and Guyan went to the courtyard to stop the chaos. At this time, Marquis Gu was covered in chicken feathers. Marquis Gu was so angry that he hated that he couldn't kill those hateful chickens. Especially the smallest one. It pooped on him several times. Guyan looked at his father's sorry state, and suddenly could not help but laugh out loud. Marquis Gu. Stinky brat. Do you still remember that I am your father? Guyan's laughter continued until Madame Yao came back. Madame Yao was going to give birth next month. Gu Jiao calculated that her due date was the first day of next month, so there was still half a month left. Her limbs were slightly swollen, and it seemed that it was difficult for her to move. Marquis Gu immediately ignored Gu Yan and walked over to help her. Why did you go out again? How did senior servant Fong look at you? You should be careful. Madame Yao's action of crossing the threshold really scared him. Was a pregnant woman walking so fiercely? In the past, Madame Ling did not dare to do this. In reality, Madame Yao also felt that this pregnancy was easier than the first. If it was not for the fact that she was getting older, it would have been easier. In the village, she had seen farmers work in the fields with their bellies protruding. Compared to them, she was very delicate. However, compared to the madams and mistresses of large families, she was still a bit fiercer. Marquis, how did you end up like this? Madame Yao looked at him in shock. The old Marquis could not say that he had been bullied by a few chickens. He could not lose face in front of his wife. He gently coughed and said, "It's nothing. The chickens ran out and I caught them." Madame Yao said, "I let them out. I had them catch insects in the vegetable slices." Other people's chickens would occasionally eat vegetable slices, but her family's chickens did not. They only ate insects and were very obedient. Marquis Gu awkwardly said, Then I'll let them out for you in a bit." Madame Yao looked at her family's recipe and said, "No need. We've caught enough for today. Marquis should quickly go change your clothes." Marquis Gu went to the carriage to change his clothes. Then he went to the backyard to talk with Madame Yao. He came today to visit Madame Yao and also to announce good news to Madame Yao. "Our son-in-law has been promoted." Madame Yao's eyes lit up. She unconsciously turned her head to look at Xiao Heng, who was chopping firewood with Gu Yan at the entrance of the kitchen. "Lu Lang, you've been promoted?" Xiao Heng had only received the document in the afternoon and did not have time to tell his family. "Brother-in-law, you've been promoted?" Gu Yan looked excitedly at Xiao Heng. Xiao Heng held the chopper and nodded. "What position?" "What position?" Gu Yan's little fanboy asked. "Hanlin Academy's attendant." Xiao Heng said. "Heh." Marquis Gu laughed in disdain. "How great of an official am I? I'm just a Hanlin Academy's attendant. Royal Prince An is about to enter the cabinet as an assistant minister." The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. Novels with content that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/10984075. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 470. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Gu Yan's eyes widened as he said, "So what if he's in the cabinet? My brother-in-law is the best." Marquis Gu chuckled. "If he's good, then why didn't he enter the cabinet?" Gu Yan angrily said, "My brother-in-law doesn't want to go. Otherwise, not to mention the cabinet, even the throne room would be open to him." "Oh my, this brat's tone is really big. Does he know what kind of place the cabinet is? And what kind of place the throne room is? In the country of Zhao, only those who have reached 5th rank have the right to meet the emperor, but that doesn't mean they can meet the emperor. Take him for example, he is the assistant minister of the Ministry of Works, but he hasn't been to court many times. He can go if he wants to? Who do you think he is?" He. Gu Yan couldn't reveal his brother-in-law's true identity, so his face turned red from holding it in. "His surname is Xiao." Marquis Gu sneered. "So what if his surname is Xiao? There are so many people with the surname Xiao in the world. Do you think everyone is the young Marquis of Zhaodu?" Gu Yan was so angry he became a little pufferfish. What if he is?" Marquis Gu didn't hear that this was the truth and only treated it as a child's angry words. He pointed at Xiao Heng and said to Gu Yan, "He is the young Marquis of Zhao. Do I call you father?" Gu Yan looked at her father, at a loss for words. She silently replied in her heart, "I." "Mother." Father and son bickered, but Xiao Heng suddenly spoke. The father and son's voices suddenly stopped, and they both looked at Yao Shi. They saw Yao Shi's face pale as she held her stomach. Her dress was wet. She said in disbelief, I think I'm about to give birth." Yao Shi's outburst came without any warning. She didn't feel any pain before her water broke. Fortunately, Gu Jiao had told her and her family about some things to take note of before giving birth. In this situation, it was best not to forcefully move. Marquis Gu carefully carried Yao Shi back into the room. Xiaoheng said to Gu Yan, I'm going to boil some water. You let the shadow guards go to the miracle hall to find your sister. If she's not there, then find Dr. Lu first. Dr. Lu was originally a midwife in the vicinity. Because she was very proficient in treating women's diseases, she was hired by Gu Jiao to work in the magical hand hall. Most people were still used to calling her midwife Lu. Xiaoheng followed Gu Jiao and respectfully called her Dr. Lu. Nanny Fong and Yuya were putting away the quilts next door. Yuya heard the noise and ran over to take a look. She exclaimed, Nanny Fong, Madam is about to give birth. It's not even time yet. Is she going into premature labor again? The expression on Nanny Fong's face changed drastically. She didn't even bother to put away the quilt, and hurriedly went through the small door that was open between the two families. She stumbled as she walked too quickly. Nanny Fong. Yuya's sharp eyes caught her and supported her. Don't panic. The young master's shadow guards have already gone to call the young miss. The young miss will be back soon. Madam will be fine. When Nanny Fong saw that Yuya, a young maidservant, was calmer than her, she couldn't help but blush with shame. She sighed and said, I was too impatient. I wasn't by Madam's side when she gave birth to the young miss and the young master. As a result, she gave birth prematurely and was swapped with the wrong child. There's always been a knot in my heart. Yuya couldn't empathize with her like Nanny Fong, but she still nodded in understanding. I understand. Nanny Fong, don't worry. Madam will be blessed by the heavens. She will definitely give birth safely. Gu Jiao wasn't here. It was Madame Lu who came. Madame Lu was a very experienced midwife. When Marquis Gu asked Huang Zhong to find a midwife for Madame Yao, he had already inquired about this person. Marquis Gu was very fortunate to be able to invite her. However, Gu Yan and Xiaoheng hoped that Gu Jiao would come. However, if Madame Yao's condition allowed it, Madame Lu's medical skills were enough. Unfortunately, Madame Yao's condition wasn't good. Did you make a mistake? My Madame's pregnancy went very smoothly. She ate and slept as she pleased. She even walked with the wind. Her stomach wasn't big either. Everyone said that she had a good pregnancy. Madame Lu had been a midwife for many years. It wasn't uncommon for a midwife like Madame Yao to be unable to give birth after a successful pregnancy. A woman didn't just walk through the gates of hell on the day of giving birth. The entire pregnancy was full of unpredictable risks. However, the most risky pregnancy was the fetus. When it came to giving birth, both of them were at great risk. After all, if something happened to the mother, the child in the womb couldn't be saved. Madame Lu naturally wouldn't say anything discouraging in front of Madame Yao. She smiled and said, Don't worry. It's just beginning. Madam is completely in motion. I've already brought the birth-inducing medicine. Just take it with water. In the past, the birth-inducing medicine had always been prepared on the spot. Gu Jiao felt that this method was time-consuming and inconvenient, so she simply made it into a wax pill. Removing the wax coating, the pill inside could be directly swallowed or taken with water. However, no one expected that Madame Yao would vomit as soon as she ate it. During Madame Yao's pregnancy, there had been almost no morning sickness. Who would have thought that she would have such a large reaction when she was about to give birth? Madame Lu changed to feeding her some brown sugar water, but she also vomited until there wasn't a single drop left. This was bad. She couldn't eat medicine and she couldn't feed food. Her strength would quickly run out. Go call Imperial Physician Luo. Outside the room, Marquis Gu ordered Huang Zhong. Yes. Huang Zhong replied and left without stopping. About an hour later, Imperial Physician Luo was brought over. Imperial Physician Luo checked Madame Yao's pulse. His expression was just as serious as Madame Lu's. At this time, there was no need for him to say anything. Madame Yao had already realized that her pregnancy had not been easy. To be honest, when she was pregnant with Jiao Jiao and Yen, her reaction was very large. 6 months later, she even vomited. That pregnancy had been very difficult, but the delivery could be considered smooth. Gu Yan's body was not good because he had been born prematurely. It wasn't that she couldn't give birth at the time. Imperial physician Luo asked Madame Lu what she had done for Madame Yao. Madame Lu replied, I planned to give her some birth-inducing medicine. Unfortunately, she vomited everything she ate. She couldn't even drink water. Imperial physician, how is my wife's condition? Marquis Gu was extremely anxious outside. Go make some more ginseng soup for Madame. If it really doesn't work, she can eat anything she wants. Also, tell Madame not to exert too much strength or cry. She needs to conserve her strength. Imperial physician Luo left the delivery room after giving instructions to Granny Fong. He reported to Marquis Gu, Madame's condition is not optimistic. The possibility of a difficult birth is very high. Generally speaking, the first stage of labor for a virgin was 10 to 12 hours. The first stage of labor for a woman who was going through labor was 6 to 8 hours. From the time Madame Yao's water broke until now, less than 4 hours had passed. It was not yet time to diagnose a difficult birth. However, with Imperial physician Luo and Madame Lu's many years of experience as physicians, as well as Madame Yao's pulse, the two had a tacit understanding of Madame Yao's condition. However, Madame Lu did not dare to say it, but Imperial physician Luo did. Marquis Gu felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. His entire body was instantly soaked in cold air. Gu Yan's small face also became deathly pale. Xiaoheng stood beside him. He unconsciously pulled on Xiaoheng's sleeve. Xiaoheng pursed his lips and did not say anything. Gu Jiao had made a house call. He could not help with this kind of thing. He only hoped that Hidden Guard A could quickly bring Gu Jiao back. At that time, the two hidden guards had gone to the medical center. When they heard that Gu Jiao was not there, one went to the place where Gu Jiao had made a house call to inform her. The other went to bring Madame Lu over first. Gu Jiao had already received the news of Madame Yao's outburst. However, she was at the scene of the accident. A vicious attack had occurred in a casino. 3 people were seriously injured. It was unknown whether they were alive or dead. She and Dr. Song were busy rescuing the injured. Hemostatic forceps. She knelt on the ground and stretched out her hand. Dr. Song skillfully handed her the hemostatic forceps. She used the hemostatic forceps to clamp down on the injured patient's blood vessels. Aspirate, she said. The Research Institute's portable negative pressure aspirator had only appeared today. She did not know if it was because her strength had recovered, but the number of instruments in her small medicine box seemed to have gradually increased. If this was the case, then there was hope for Gu Yan's heart surgery. Dr. Song had been with Gu Jiao for so long, so he was not surprised by the strange things in her medicine box. He understood it immediately. He sucked out the blood and fluid in the patient's abdominal cavity. Gu Jiao found the remains of the dart that remained in the patient's abdominal cavity, and took it out with tweezers. His spleen almost ruptured. She really did not know whether he was lucky or not. Gu Jiao was busy until midnight when she and Dr. Song finished rescuing all the patients. I will take them back to the medical center. You go back quickly, Dr. Song said to Gu Jiao. The shadow guards had been waiting outside the room for a long time. He knew that something must have happened at home. Gu Jiao nodded and returned to Bishui Alley with the shadow guard. Madame Yao's labor pain was getting worse, but there was no sign of the baby being born. Halfway through, Gu Yan's heart disease almost flared up. Xiaoheng fed him medicine in time, and coaxed him to go back to his room to rest. He let Gu Xiaoshan look after him. Little Jing Kong did not know that Madame Yao had encountered a difficult birth. Xiaoheng told him to sleep well. When he woke up tomorrow morning, he would have a little sister or brother. He was very happy and went back to his room to sleep with his little pillow. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all the novels that you can't find on the internet. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896428226/1098396889. HTML Genius remembered this website's address in a second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com Chapter 471. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online. Gu Jiao first discussed Madame Yao's situation with Imperial Physician Luo and Madame Lu in the central room. Nanny Fong was also there. She kept wiping her tears. Madame gave birth prematurely again. It's not considered prematurely, Gu Jiao said. It was considered prematurely born when it was less than 37 weeks. Madame Yao was already 38 weeks, so this fetus was full term. In fact, Madame Lu also said that it was normal to have an attack in this month, but Nanny Fong didn't dare to believe it. Only when Gu Jiao said the same thing did Nanny Fong feel slightly relieved. However, even full-term fetuses might not be able to be delivered smoothly. I'll go take a look first. Gu Jiao went into the delivery room. Only after she went in did Marquis Gu react. Was it that girl just now? Why did she come here to cause trouble at this time? As he spoke, he was about to go into the delivery room to pull Gu Jiao out, but he was stopped by Nanny Fong. Nanny Fong said, Marquis, don't cause trouble. Let eldest miss take a look at Madam. Me? Cause trouble? Marquis Gu pointed at himself. He seriously suspected that he had misheard. Wasn't that girl the one who caused trouble? No matter how insensible she was, she shouldn't have disturbed her mother at this time. Her mother was about to give birth. Jinyu was still the most sensible. Father. Speak of the devil. Gu Jinyu jumped down from the carriage, covered in dust. She almost didn't care about her bearing as a rich young lady, and ran towards Marquis Gu. Father. Nanny Fong. He came in front of the two and also greeted Nanny Fong. Nanny Fong politely and distantly bowed. Second Mississippi, Marquis Gu was burning with anxiety, so he didn't care that Nanny Fong's attitude towards Gu Jinyu was not as respectful as it was in the residence. Gu Jinyu also didn't seem to care. She looked at Marquis Gu and said, Father, I heard that mother is about to give birth. Why is it so fast? When Marquis Gu saw that Yao Shi had not given birth, he sent Huang Zhong back to the manor to bring a few stalks of superior ginseng and Ganoderma over. Coincidentally, Gu Jinyu saw them. Marquis Gu didn't have the time to ask her how she got the news. He said with a serious expression, Your mother had a difficult birth. What? Wasn't everything fine before? Why did you suddenly have a difficult labor? Gu Jinyu had visited Yao Shi a few times in the summer alley, and had a good understanding of Yao Shi's condition. Marquis Gu frowned. I knew it. This girl grew up in the countryside. How would she know how to take care of people? Gu Jinyu opened her mouth. Father, that's not what I meant. Don't blame elder sister. Nanny Fong said lightly. Second young miss is really good at taking care of people. Why don't I see second young miss coming to serve Madam tea every day? Gu Jinyu said in a low voice. I want to come too. I'm afraid elder sister won't be willing to see me. Senior servant Fong smiled faintly. Eldest miss isn't at home for 9 out of 10 days. Even if I wanted to see her, I wouldn't be able to. Gu Jinyu looked at Nanny Fong aggrievedly. Nanny, did Jinyu do something wrong that made Nanny unhappy? Nanny seems to only like elder sister and not me. This servant doesn't dare. Senior servant Fong bowed deeply. Marquis Gu looked impatiently at senior servant Fong. That's enough. Don't just stand here. Quickly go and pull that girl out. Without waiting for senior servant Fong to speak, Gu Jinyu said softly, Father, I'll go in and see mother. Marquis Gu agreed. I'll go ahead. Take good care of your mother. Jinyu was much more attentive than that girl. That girl was crude and only knew how to use her hands. How could she be half as considerate and gentle as Jinyu? Senior servant Fong was called by Yuya. She was not paying attention and Gu Jinyu went in. The room was filled with the strong smell of mugwort. Madame Lu had used mugwort to smoke Yao Shi's stomach to induce labor. Unfortunately, it was useless. Gu Jinyu felt uncomfortable choking on the mugwort, and came to the bedside with a frown. Imperial physician Luo had already left. Madame Lu and Gu Jiao were guarding the bedside. Gu Jiao examined Yao Shi. Yao Shi's main problem was that her uterus was weak and her uterus could not open. This caused the fetus to be unable to enter the birth canal smoothly. Although Madame Lu had been comforting her, Yaoshi still felt extremely afraid. On one hand, she was afraid, and on the other, she was enduring the torment of labor pain. Her face was pale and her body was soaked in sweat. This was the first time Gu Jinyu had seen Yaoshi in such a weak and sorry state. He was so frightened that he stopped in his tracks. Gu Jiao was using a stethoscope to listen to the child's heartbeat, and did not notice Gu Jinyu come in. She said to Yaoshi, "Don't worry. I'll give you an injection to induce labor first. If it still doesn't work, I'll give you a cesarean section." "You are." Madame Lu went to get a clean towel. When she turned around, she saw Gu Jinyu. She had never seen him before and could not help but feel puzzled. Gu Jinyu returned to his senses and suppressed the fear in his heart. He said to Madame Lu, "I'm here to see my mother." As he spoke, he walked to the bedside. However, before he could say the word mother, Yaoshi screamed from the torment of labor pain. That scream was truly pitiful. In addition, Yaoshi's entire face was contorted from the pain. She looked too frightening. Gu Jinyu paled and retreated a few steps. Coincidentally, she bumped into Nanny Fong, who was bringing in hot water. The hot water spilled and splashed all over Nanny Fong. The copper basin even fell to the ground with a clang. The baby in Yaoshi's womb was so frightened that he started to hiccup. Gu Jiao looked coldly at Gu Jinyu. "Get out." Yaoshi also saw Gu Jinyu, but she did not have the energy to speak. "Mother, I..." Before Gu Jinyu could finish speaking, Gu Jiao walked forward, grabbed Gu Jinyu's collar, and threw him out. Was Gu Jiao targeting Gu Jinyu? She was. 1. She did not like to be surrounded when she was practicing medicine. Another, Gu Jinyu was always grumbling. Of course, she could have asked Nanny Fong to escort him out. But she was annoyed. After Gu Jinyu was thrown out, Marquis Gu quickly caught him. Otherwise, she would have fallen flat on her face. Marquis Gu's chest was filled with anger. He glared coldly at Gu Jiao and said, "Stupid girl. You've become bold, haven't you? Why do you hit everyone?" Gu Jinyu grabbed Marquis Gu and said worriedly, "Father, I'm fine. But you should quickly stop elder sister, right? I just heard her say that she wanted to cut open mother's womb and take out the baby." "What?" Marquis Gu's expression changed. It's enough that the stupid girl is not filial to her mother, but she actually wants to cut open her mother's womb. Does she still have a conscience? I will not allow her to hurt your mother. Marquis Gu rushed in aggressively. Unexpectedly, he had just taken a step when Shadow Guard A and Shadow Guard B both descended from the sky. Shadow Guard A sealed his acupoint with a whoosh. Then he and Shadow Guard B each grabbed one of his arms and dragged him out of the backyard. Xiaoheng looked at him indifferently from the main room. The moment he brushed past Xiaoheng, Marquis Gu understood everything. It was this brat who made them do it. This stupid brat, this stupid brat. Let go of me. Whoosh. Shadow Guard B sealed his mute acupoint. Marquis Gu. Do you still remember that you are the Marquis's household shadow guards? The two shadow guards directly dragged Marquis Gu out of the yard. Huang Zhong skillfully took him from their hands and carried him onto the carriage. Marquis Gu. Huang Zhong, won't you beat them up for me? Huang Zhong rubbed his hands and said, I'm a bit hungry. Marquis, I'll go make a bowl of noodles. You're still in the mood to eat noodles? Can't you see that my acupoint has been sealed? You should at least take me with you. Huang Zhong decisively went nearby and made a bowl of hot and sour lamb noodles. He ate with great vigor. Gu Jiao hooked Yaoshi up with an intravenous drip and began to inject oxytocin into Yaoshi. Gu Jiao had indeed mentally prepared herself for Yaoshi's cesarean section, but the anesthetics and scalpel needed for the operation still did not appear in the medicine box. An hour later, Yaoshi's situation began to improve. The contractions became stronger, and she was able to eat. It seemed that she could try to give birth naturally. 2 hours later, when Yaoshi's cervix had dilated to 2 fingers, Gu Jiao gave Yaoshi a painless injection. At midnight, Yaoshi ate a bowl of brown sugar eggs. At midnight, Yaoshi drank half a bowl of ginseng soup. At midnight, Yaoshi could no longer eat anything. She tightly held onto Gu Jiao's hand like a drowning person holding onto a piece of driftwood. Jiao Jiao, if something happens to me, nothing will happen to you. So don't make me choose to protect the child. At 5 o'clock, after a whole night of hard work, a loud cry finally came from the delivery room. Yaosher's entire body was drained. It was as if she had just been fished out of water. There was not a single dry spot on her body. Hearing the child's cries, she was so emotional that tears began to fall. Don't be emotional. There's still the placenta, Gu Jiao said. Yaosher nodded with tears in her eyes and cooperated until the delivery was complete. After Gu Jiao finished the last stitch, she took off her gloves and washed her hands with disinfectant. Like a doctor, she touched Yaosher's forehead. You're very brave. This was a habit from her previous life. She would praise a patient who cooperated well. Her words did not have much warmth, and her expression was too calm, but every patient that she touched would feel a wave of warmth and excitement. Yaosher was no exception. However, while Yaosher was happy and excited, she suddenly felt that this daughter of hers was a bit unfamiliar. It was so unfamiliar that it was as if she had become another person, a powerful existence that could cause others to feel fear. In truth, this was because Yaosher had never seen Gu Jiao perform surgery. When Gu Jiao put down the scalpel, she was a very obedient Jiao Jiao. When she picked up the scalpel, she became the king of hell. The king of hell picked up the crying baby and calmly looked at this little life that had been brought into the world by the king of hell. Hello, little brother. Welcome to the human world. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1098171007. HTML Genius 1 second. Remember this website. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 472. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel was also updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels were read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online here. After the baby was born, Marquis Gu's acupoints were finally unsealed by the secret guards. I'll deal with you later. Marquis Gu glared coldly at Gu Yan's 2 hidden guards and hurriedly walked towards Yaosher's room. At this time, Yaosher was not in her own room. Her room had been turned into a delivery room and needed to be cleaned up. She was resting in Gu Jiao's east room. She collapsed from exhaustion and fell into a deep sleep. Madame Lu had returned to the medical center, and Nanny Fong was bathing the little fellow. Where's Madame? Marquis Gu looked at Yuya, who was tidying up the room, and asked. In the east room, Yuya said. Marquis Gu hurriedly rushed to the east room. The little fellow had already finished bathing and was now obediently wrapped in swaddling clothes by Nanny Fong. Marquis Gu looked at the little guy, and his heart skipped a beat. However, the first person he asked was Yaosher. Where is Madame? Nanny Fong moved to the side with the little fellow in her arms, revealing the bed behind her. She said softly, Madame is resting. How is she? Marquis Gu worriedly asked. As he spoke, he arrived at the bedside and tightly held Yaosher's hand. Is Madame all right? Nanny Fong sighed. Although the Marquis was a little muddle-headed, he treated the Madame well. She said, The Madame is fine. Marquis, do you want to see the child? Hearing that Madame Yao was fine, Marquis Gu's anxious heart finally settled down. His gaze fell on the swaddling clothes in Nanny Fong's arms, and he couldn't hide his excitement as he asked, Is it a son or a daughter? Nanny Fong smiled and said, Congratulations, Marquis. It's a young master. Gu Jiao sorted out all the medical supplies. She destroyed those that could be destroyed and buried those that could not be destroyed. Then she checked the small medicine box. The medicine box didn't seem to be as broken as it was when he first arrived. While she was recovering her strength, the medicine box seemed to be slowly recovering as well. Gu Jiao had actually guessed that the medicine box might not be a product of the three-dimensional space. It came from a higher dimension. Otherwise, there was no way to explain why it followed her. It might even have brought her brainwaves here. She saw it as three-dimensional because she was a person from a three-dimensional space. She could only see this dimension. But maybe the medicine box was not what she saw. Maybe there was a wall on its left, or maybe there was a cabinet on its right, but because of the different dimensions, she could neither see nor touch it. Gu Jiao tapped on the medicine box. But why would a high-dimensional space product have a three-dimensional shell? Are you also a defective product? Were you exiled to our time and space by your master? A gentle breeze blew, and the medicine box was as quiet as a chicken. Gu Jiao tidied everything up. The sky was a little white, and the courtyard, which had been busy all night, fell into a temporary silence. Gu Jiao was a little sleepy, but she couldn't fall asleep. She went to sit on the swing in the front yard. Not long after she sat down, Xiaoheng came over with his cane. "Are you up or not?" Gu Jiao looked at him and asked. The next second, she realized that her words were unnecessary. He didn't even change his clothes. He obviously didn't sleep all night. Xiaoheng sat down beside her and handed her a small yellow orange, saying, "Congratulations, Dr. Gu, on becoming an older sister." Gu Jiao peeled the orange and put half of it in his palm. "Congratulations to Lord Xiao for becoming a brother-in-law." Both of them laughed. The exhaustion of the night seemed to dissipate in each other's laughter. Gu Jiao divided the orange evenly. Each of them had 6 pieces. The two of them ate the orange in their hands. When Gu Jiao had the last piece left, she didn't eat it. Instead, she put it in Xiaoheng's palm. "Also, congratulations to Lord Xiao for your promotion." Xiaoheng raised his eyebrows. "Ah, my promotion gift is a piece of orange," Gu Jiao said. "Then as a sister, my gift is also a piece of orange." Xiaoheng said again, "As a brother-in-law, my gift is half a piece of orange." Gu Jiao. Why did she have to compete with a scholar? Xiaoheng laughed softly. He looked at the piece of orange in his palm, which had even been peeled clean. He was a little reluctant to eat it. How about? He had just opened his mouth when he felt his right shoulder sink. Gu Jiao had fallen asleep on his shoulder. The golden morning light tore through the darkness and stepped through the clouds. It gently scattered in the quiet courtyard. Xiaoheng ate the last piece of orange and raised his hand to block the light in front of her eyes. "Son-in-law me." Yuya walked out of the central room with small steps. She wanted to call the two of them to eat something, but she saw Xiaoheng put his index finger on her lips and shushed her softly. Yuya quickly covered her mouth. Xiaoheng kept raising his hand to block the glaring light for her, until his arm became numb. Yuya called him a groundhog in her heart. "Ah, son-in-law is a peerless good man. He's too gentle. Young miss, quickly submit to son-in-law." Xiaoheng waited until Gu Jiao fell asleep before he carried her in his arms. He wrapped one hand around her back, and the other around her knees. He carried her horizontally and walked towards the west room. Little Jingkong had already woken up. He went to look for his younger brothers and sisters. Xiaoheng placed Gu Jiao on his bed. Although they had slept together a long time ago, this was the first time she slept in his room. This feeling was very novel and made him inexplicably excited. His movements were very gentle, as if she was a fragile treasure. Little Jingkong came back after visiting his younger brother. He was a little disappointed. His younger brother only knew how to sleep. It was not fun at all. When he came to the bed, he found Gu Jiao sleeping on his and his bad brother-in-law's bed. Huh! His eyes widened. The light in his eyes gathered again. He kicked off his shoes without saying anything. "I still want to sleep." Before he could jump onto the bed, he was lifted up by Xiaoheng. His little arms and legs flailed in the air. "Put me down. Put me down. I want to sleep." He wanted to sleep with Jiao Jiao. "You should go to school." Xiaoheng dragged him out without hesitation. Little Jingkong went crazy. Why did a child have to go to school? Although Xiaoheng didn't sleep the whole night, he still went to the Hanlin Academy. After all, he had just been promoted yesterday. It was unreasonable to ask for leave today. Besides, he wasn't very tired and could still hold on. "I'll send you," Lu Quan said. "You should at least take a nap in the carriage." Xiaoheng didn't refuse. It was still early, so Lu Quan drove the carriage very slowly. Xiaoheng leaned against the wall of the carriage and closed his eyes to rest. Halfway through the journey, Lu Quan's carriage suddenly stopped. It didn't move for a long time. Xiaoheng opened his eyes and asked Lu Quan, "Uncle Lu, what's wrong?" "That." Lu Quan craned his neck and looked. He said, "It seems that a noble's carriage is coming." This was the case in the capital. Once an official went out, those with lower ranks would have to give way to him. They were not the only carriage on the roadside. Many officials in front of them had begun to move to the sides of the alley to make room. "Whose carriage is it?" Xiaoheng asked. "You don't even know? It's the newly appointed cabinet elder." A scholar who was watching the commotion said. Xiao Luleng was sitting in an old carriage. It was inevitable that people would think that his status was not very high. In fact, it was indeed so. A fifth-rank palace attendant was nothing in the capital where a falling brick could kill 3 nobles. However, a cabinet elder was different. He was a close official of the emperor. The other party added a small character in front of the cabinet elder. "May I ask which cabinet elder it is?" Lu Quan asked the scholar. Lu Quan was very familiar with the official positions in the capital. If it was only a cabinet elder, his position might not be as high as Liu Long's. If that was the case, they could refuse. The scholar said, "Which other cabinet elder could it be?" "It's Princeton of the Zhuang family. He was promoted to the cabinet elder after working in the Hanlin Academy for only 4 months. He is indeed the most talented scholar in the capital." "The most talented scholar in the capital? Who gave him this title?" "He was first in the imperial examinations. His Luleng was the new Zhuang Yuan." What should they say? Xiaoheng's focus was not on the title of the most talented scholar in the capital. Yesterday, when Princess Xinyang mentioned Prince An's promotion to the cabinet elder, she said that he was conferred the title of a 7th-rank palace attendant. Today, the commoners said that he was a cabinet elder. Elder cabinet wasn't an official position, but rather a respectful title for the grand secretaries of the cabinet. However, not every grand secretary of the cabinet had the qualifications to be called elder cabinet. Only the grand secretary of the intermediate palace and the 2 assistant grand secretaries of Jianji Palace and Wenhua Palace had the qualifications to be called elder cabinet. As for the Wuying Hall, Wenyuan Pavilion, and Eastern Pavilion scholars, they were all called cabinet elders. Princess Xinyang's information could not be wrong. Prince An's official position was definitely the 7th-rank palace attendant. Above the palace attendant were the 6th-rank palace attendant, the 5th-rank palace attendant, the 4th-rank palace attendant, and the 3rd-rank palace attendant. These people did not have the qualifications to be called cabinet elder. Prince An's title of cabinet elder most likely came from his birth and status. To put it bluntly, he was Grand Tutor Zhuang's grandson. When he entered the cabinet elder, he was aiming to be in charge of the cabinet elder. Cabinet elder was just a title in advance. One day, he would become the grand cabinet elder. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that could not be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896428226/1098167553. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Biku Pavilion Mobile Reading Website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 473. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all here. Lu Quan looked back at Xiaoheng and asked, "Luleng, should we move aside?" In terms of official position, Xiaoheng was now a 5th-rank attendant, but the other party was Royal Princeton. They couldn't afford to offend him. "No," Xiaoheng said. If anyone should move aside, it should be him moving aside. Ha, what a big tone. Royal Prince An's carriage came to the opposite side of Xiao Heng's carriage. The voice that came from inside wasn't Royal Prince An's, but rather Grand Tutor Zhuang's. Someone in the crowd recognized his voice and shouted, "It's the Grand Tutor." No one expected Grand Tutor Zhuang to be sitting in Royal Prince An's carriage. The officials who moved aside for Royal Prince An secretly rejoiced that they didn't put on airs and obediently moved aside. Otherwise, they would be the ones being slapped in the face by Grand Tutor Zhuang. Who was this kid? His voice sounded very young. Perhaps he was young and immature and kicked an iron plate. Others couldn't recognize Xiao Heng's voice, but how could Grand Tutor Zhuang not recognize it? Opposing him at every turn, taking away the Empress Dowager's favor, causing the Empress Dowager to be distant and cold to the Zhuang family. It was all the Xiao Liulong's doing behind the scenes. Grand Tutor Zhuang was warned by the Empress Dowager not to make things difficult for Xiao Lulang, but he couldn't make things difficult for Xiao Lulang. Grand Tutor Zhuang simply had the coachman open the curtain. He sat in the spacious carriage, and the people could see the inside of the Zhuang family's luxurious carriage from different angles. It seemed modest and not high profile, but who would have thought that a simple armchair table was made of expensive gold-rimmed Phoebe Jinnan wood? The curtain was only half opened, revealing Grand Tutor Zhuang's figure. Beside him was a pair of spotless official boots, presumably belonging to his grandson. Royal Prince and Grand Tutor Zhuang sneered and looked at the carriage in front of him. "Isn't this Attendant Xiao? Attendant Xiao, are you blocking my way? Are you waiting for this official to move aside? When did the officials of the Hanlin Academy become so arrogant? Even the Grand Tutor has to make way for a mere attendant?" These words truly did not leave any face for Xiao Lulang. No matter how outstanding Xiao Lulang was, no matter how much he was the new Zhuang Yuan personally appointed by the emperor, he was still just a small Hanlin official. How could he be like Grand Tutor Zhuang, who had long been a first-class official in court? Blocking Grand Tutor Zhuang's path. Wasn't that just asking for humiliation? However, Grand Tutor Zhuang's attack wasn't just limited to his words. He continued, "You can't possibly be relying on the fact that someone in the palace is supporting you to not put me in your eyes, right?" There was someone in the palace backing him up. Who was it? Grand Tutor Zhuang didn't point out that it was the Empress Dowager, so everyone naturally thought it was the current emperor. His Majesty did not stick to one type of talent, but he was arrogant because of his favor at such a young age. It was clear that he was not worthy of His Majesty's praise. "I'm from the countryside, so I haven't seen the world." No wonder. He probably doesn't know that the emperor's heart is hard to fathom. Without His Majesty's favor, he is nothing. He's so arrogant because of His Majesty's favor at such a young age. Does he really think he is the same as Royal Prince An and has the qualifications to be arrogant? But Royal Prince An isn't arrogant. Royal Prince An is humble and courteous. He knows when to advance and when to retreat. He never oversteps his status. This is the demeanor of a great family. What's the saying again? A bucket full of water doesn't sway, but a bucket half full of water sways. Haha. Everyone was amused by an old man's teasing. People probably had a strange mentality. They liked to see people fall from a high place, and enjoyed the pleasure of being judged. Everyone was waiting to see Xiao Lulang make a fool of himself. However, no one expected that a handsome man dressed in purple leisurely strolled out from behind the crowd. He had a powerful aura. The originally impenetrable crowd almost involuntarily opened a path for him. When Grand Tutor Zhuang saw this person, his expression froze. Marquis Xianping? Marquis Xianping stopped beside Xiao Heng's carriage and looked at Grand Tutor Zhuang with a faint smile. "Oh, isn't this Grand Tutor Zhuang? What a coincidence. You're also going to court? What time is it? Still going to court? Court has already been dismissed." No, he used the word also. "Are you, Marquis Xianping, so shameless? You say it as if you're going to court today." Grand Tutor Zhuang snorted coldly. "Marquis Xianping hasn't been to court in a long time. I'm afraid you've even forgotten the time of morning court." Marquis Xianping smiled. "That's right. His Majesty is benevolent. He sympathizes with my old injury that hasn't healed and spares me the pain of going to court." "Bullshit, old injury that hasn't healed. You, Marquis Xianping, have never properly attended court. Of course, the emperor did say this. However, it wasn't because he sympathized with Marquis Xianping. It was because Marquis Xianping was too bold. The emperor was afraid that he would lose face for the officials of Zhao country. Thus he gave him an excuse. Is there a seat? Marquis Xianping pretended to ask Lu Quan casually. Ah, there is. There isn't. Lu Quan and Xiaoheng spoke at the same time. The second sentence was said by Xiaoheng. Everyone's eyes widened. Did they hear wrong? This Hanlin official actually dared to reject Marquis Xianping on the street. He probably wants to beat Marquis Xianping to death. Grand Tutor Zhuang also chuckled. There is okay. Marquis Xianping directly ignored Xiaoheng's rejection. He smiled and sat in Xiaoheng's carriage. His movements were natural and smooth. Xiaoheng, Grand Tutor Zhuang. Everyone. After he sat down, he acted as if he didn't know that Xiaoheng's carriage was blocking Grand Tutor Zhuang's path. In terms of official position, he was a first-rank martial marquis. Grand Tutor Zhuang was one of the 3 dukes, and was also a first-rank official. In terms of status, he was the current imperial uncle. Grand Tutor Zhuang was the previous imperial uncle. In terms of power, he held military power. Grand Tutor Zhuang secretly held political power. In terms of family background, the Xiao family was not as deep as the Zhuang family. However, Marquis Xianping also had another identity. He was the emperor's son-in-law. A powerful emperor's son-in-law. Since ancient times, those who married a princess were not allowed to enter the imperial court as an official. Marquis Xianping was the first. Marquis Xianping didn't care about the comments of others. He sat down casually and calmly looked at Grand Tutor Zhuang. His eyes were just short of saying, I won't make way for you. If worse comes to worst, I won't leave. Marquis Xianping was so arrogant. So shameless. Grand Tutor Zhuang was so angry that his teeth itched. Marquis Xianping lazily leaned against the wall of the carriage and raised his eyebrows. This marquis isn't worried about being late. I wonder if Grand Tutor Zhuang and your grandson aren't worried about being late? What kind of joke was this? How could Royal Prince be late on his first day in the imperial court? Grand Tutor Zhuang was so angry that his head hurt. Marquis Xianping wasn't here to jinx him. How could there be someone as shameless as Marquis Xianping in this world? However, his anger didn't last long. He thought of something and his expression relaxed. If we're late, wouldn't Attendant Xiao be late? If he remembered correctly, this was also Xiao Liulong's first day of promotion. Didn't you, Marquis Xianping, want to stand up for Xiao Luleng? Fine, you cause him to be late and get a demerit. Let's see if he still appreciates your kindness. Marquis Xianping's handsome face darkened. Fuck. I forgot about this. He narrowed his eyes and looked at old Fox Zhuang, then looked at the expressionless Xiaoheng. He leaned over and said softly as if he was coaxing a child. Don't worry, I won't let you be late. After saying this, he straightened his body. His voice was cold as he said faintly, Changjing, move the obstacles away. Changjing flashed to the front of the Zhuang family's carriage. Before the Zhuang family's guards could react, Changjing had already lifted the entire carriage. Put it down gently. It's polite. Marquis Xianping reminded. Oh, Changjing really gently put the carriage to the side. Grand Tutor Zhuang almost exploded in anger, and cursed in his heart. King moved my carriage in the middle of the street, and you still have manners. Where did you get the face to say such words? Grand Tutor Zhuang was so angry that his entire body trembled. Marquis Xianping. Don't go too far. If the news of Marquis Xianping's subordinates moving his carriage in the middle of the street spread, where would he put his face? Where would the Zhuang family put their face? Marquis Xianping was about to leave when Grand Tutor Zhuang suddenly shouted. He lifted the curtain and motioned for Lu Quan to stop the carriage. Lu Quan didn't dare to disobey, and obediently stopped the carriage. Marquis Xianping casually walked down the carriage, and came to Grand Tutor Zhuang's carriage. Royal Prince suddenly had an ominous premonition. He was about to dissuade his grandfather, but it was too late. Marquis Xianping directly shattered the carriage. The walls of the carriage cracked and fell to the ground. Royal Princeton and Grand Tutor Zhuang were exposed in front of everyone without any warning. The carriage was destroyed and only a bench was left. The two sat on the bench as if they were suddenly stripped naked. They were so embarrassed that their faces turned red. Marquis Xianping looked at Grand Tutor Zhuang and arrogantly curled his lips. This is going too far. Grand Tutor Zhuang. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896/1098159447. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 474. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. This matter was too big and had a bad influence. Grand Tutor Zhuang would definitely go to the emperor to complain about Marquis Xianping in order to save his old face. However, was Marquis Xianping afraid of him complaining? There were mountains of complaints about Marquis Xianping in the imperial study. His shameless actions were too numerous to count. He didn't commit murder or arson, so he couldn't be punished severely. However, he did disgusting things one after another. He could make people angry to the point that one Buddha was born and 2 Buddhas ascended to heaven. However, these things didn't warrant death. At most, he would be beaten 100 times. After the beating, he would be a good man again. Marquis Xianping sat in Xiao Heng's carriage and left, leaving Grand Tutor Zhuang and his grandson as the laughingstock on the street. He originally wanted to give Xiao Luleng a show of strength, but unexpectedly, Marquis Xianping showed his strength instead. Grand Tutor Zhuang had never been so humiliated in his life. The Zhuang family and Marquis Xianping's food didn't get along for a day or two. It was normal to have a falling out, but it was rare to see a falling out like this. Was this falling out? This was King tearing up his pants. Royal Princeton was really wronged. Today's matter wasn't his idea. Although he did feel a bit superior, he was implicated by Grand Tutor Zhuang. His glory of entering the cabinet was completely destroyed by Marquis Xianping's show of strength. Today's humiliation would probably become his dark history for the rest of his life. Marquis Xianping sent Xiao Heng to Hanlin Academy. Along the way, Marquis Xianping wanted to talk to his son shamelessly countless times. However, Xiao Heng said, "I didn't sleep last night." And Marquis Xianping shut up. Marquis Xianping held it in all the way until Xiao Heng opened his eyes and planned to get off the carriage. Only then did he ask, "What did you do? Didn't sleep all night?" "Something happened," Xiao Heng said. Marquis Xianping, "How can I not know you have something to do? What is it? Tell me." He couldn't get angry with his son. The more he bullied Grand Tutor Zhuang, the more miserable he felt when being bullied by his son. Before Xiao Heng's accident, Marquis Xianping held the absolute dominant position in the relationship between father and son. For years later, the positions of the two had changed. "Why don't I apply for leave for you?" Marquis Xianping said. "No need." Xiao Heng calmly got off the carriage. Marquis Xianping followed. He had never compared his son's height in the past, but today, he suddenly looked at his son's head and realized that his son was too tall, almost taller than him. He was a military general. Since he was young, he had been rolling and crawling in the mud, so it was natural for him to grow taller. This brat did not do anything, nor did he see him run or jump, so how did he grow so fast? Seeing that Xiao Heng was about to enter Hanlin Academy, Marquis Xianping's sharp eyes noticed that his walking posture was very strange. He was someone who had survived the battlefield. Other than his face, there was not a single part of his body that was intact. He had probably suffered more injuries than Xiao Heng had fallen. How could they not see that his lame leg was different from before? He asked, "Your leg is better?" Xiao Heng's steps paused. "It's really better?" Marquis Xianping looked at him in surprise. Xiao Heng still did not intend to pay attention to him. Marquis Xianping sighed. "Do you hate me that much? Are you blaming me for not being able to save you from the fire, because I was too busy investigating the case? Or are you blaming me for not being able to detect the existence of that group of people earlier, causing you to be forced to conceal your identity and go far away?" A straight man would never be able to find the main point when it came to admitting his mistake. He was so angry that he could dig out a vegetable garden with his toes. Xiao Heng's face was cold as he entered Hanlin Academy without looking back. Marquis Xianping was confused. Why was he angry again? Chang Jing drove the carriage to the vicinity. Marquis Xianping sighed as he got into the carriage. He leaned against the wall of the carriage and said helplessly, "Chang Jing, I'm too pitiful. Xiao Heng doesn't recognize me. I'm going to become a lonely old man." Marquis Xianping's original intention was to quickly say, "You're not old. You're in the prime of your life. You can still be beautiful for 20 more years." Unexpectedly, Chang Jing fell into deep thought. After a while, Chang Jing said seriously, "It's fine. If you die, I'll throw a basin for you." Marquis Xianping. After Gu Jiao's intensive medical practice for a day and a night, she was carried to the west room by Xiao Heng and fell asleep. Perhaps it was because she did not recognize the bed, or perhaps it was because this bed had a scent that she liked and felt at ease. She slept until the afternoon. Just before she was about to wake up, she had a dream. She dreamt of a boundless sea. On the sea, there was a battlefield. Marquis Xianping was on a battleship that was riddled with holes. He held a long sword in his hand and wore black iron armor. He was fighting on the deck that was filled with blood. In front of him was an island. Behind him was a city. Gu Jiao had never been to the city, but in her dream, she could call out the name of the city. Nanhai City, a small city in the southernmost part of the Zhao Kingdom. As for the island, it was originally part of Nanhai City. However, it had been invaded by pirates on the sea. Marquis Xianping's goal was to wipe out the pirates and take back the island. This pirate incident was not simple. Just as Marquis Xianping was going south to suppress the pirates, bad news came from the frontier fortress of the Zhao Kingdom. The remnants of the previous dynasty colluded with the Qin Kingdom. Tang Yueshan's army was defeated and Princess Ning was captured. In order to save Princess Ning, the old Marquis went into danger alone. Unfortunately, he fell into the trap of the remnants of the previous dynasty. The frontier fortress lost 3 cities in a row. The emperor was furious. He immediately summoned Gu Changqing, who was far away near Fengdu Mountain, back to the court. He ordered him to reorganize the Gu army and go north to attack the enemy. Unexpectedly, before the army set out, news came from the frontier fortress that Gu Qingfeng and the old Marquis had both died. It turned out that after Gu Qingfeng learned that his grandfather had been captured, he quietly left the capital and went to the frontier fortress alone to save his grandfather. He was a flying frost. Logically speaking, it should be easy for him to steal someone from the enemy camp. However, something went wrong midway. He was discovered by the remnants of the previous dynasty and shot to death. The enemy cut off his head and hung it on the city wall with the old Marquis's head. This was a premeditated trap. The frontier fortress was cold. The 2 heads hung on the city wall for a whole month without any signs of decay. The old Marquis watched as his grandson was shot to death in front of him. He died with his eyes wide open. His pair of frozen red eyes were filled with anger and despair. Although Gu Changqing had mentally prepared himself on the way here, seeing this scene with his own eyes, seeing his younger brother and grandfather's heads hung on the wall, still made his blood boil. He spat out a mouthful of blood in front of everyone. Gu Changqing finally took back the frontier fortress, killed the remnants of the previous dynasty, and also annihilated the Qin army. However, the price was his legs and the 100,000 soldiers of the Gu army. 80,000 of them were not allowed to return. The heroic young men were stationed at the frontier. Because of this overly tragic dream, Gu Jiao did not immediately realize that she was sleeping on Xiao Heng's bed when she woke up. She sat at the head of the bed in a daze for a while, and the little strand of hair on her head stood up again. The events in the dream happened half a year later. However, with the precedent of the Twin Blades sect capturing Xiaoheng, Gu Jiao did not dare to guarantee that the events in her dream would not happen earlier. Why would it happen earlier? She did not know. Sometimes, she felt that her dreams were precognitive. However, recently, she suddenly had a misconception, as if they had happened before. She had experienced them, but she had forgotten them. This conjecture was very bold, and could even be called absurd. That was why she said that it might just be her misconception. She suddenly thought of that transmigrator from the Yin Kingdom. She wondered if he or she had experienced the same thing as her. It would be great if she could ask him in person. Forget it. Now was not the time to think about this. It was better to think about what happened in the dream. If her conjecture was correct, then the most important question right now was whether the tragedy of the Gu grandfather and grandson, as well as the 100,000 soldiers of the Gu army, would happen earlier. Your Majesty! Your Majesty! Bad news. The Emperor was reviewing memorials in the imperial study when Eunuch Wei walked in with a hurried expression. What's the matter? The Emperor frowned and glared at Eunuch Wei. Eunuch Wei had been by the Emperor's side for a long time. He should not have been so unruly. Eunuch Wei felt bitter. He did not want to, but this time, something really big had happened. He reported, Your Majesty, Marquis Xianping has bullied Imperial Tutor Zhuang. Imperial Tutor Zhuang has come to complain to you. The Emperor frowned. Imperial Tutor Zhuang? Marquis Xianping had bullied Imperial Tutor Zhuang? To be honest, he did not have a good impression of Imperial Tutor Zhuang. The Zhuang family had great power. On the surface, Imperial Tutor Zhuang respected him, the Emperor. However, who knew how many obstacles he had secretly set up? No matter what, Imperial Tutor Zhuang had been a senior official for 2 dynasties. He was also the Empress Dowager's older brother, so he was his uncle in name. The Emperor still summoned him to the imperial study. Grand Tutor Zhuang was a scholar, and all scholars had a sharp tongue. Through a voluminous accusation, he vividly portrayed Marquis Xianping's disregard for the law and discipline, as well as his tyrannical behavior of humiliating an official of the imperial court. The Emperor thought, how could I not know that Marquis Xianping is a bully? What's the point of you looking for me? I can't even beat him. Imperial Tutor Zhuang understood that the Emperor was on Marquis Xianping's side. But so what? The Emperor could not be biased to the point that he forgot the rules. Imperial Tutor Zhuang said sincerely, Your Majesty, this is right under the Emperor's feet. He dares to act so violently and does not put Your Majesty's dignity in his eyes. I really don't know how he will trample on the dignity of the imperial family in the future. These words were just short of saying that Marquis Xianping's merits overshadowed the Emperor's. Today he dared to bully the Emperor's uncle. In the future he would dare to sit on the Emperor's head and behave atrociously. If these words were heard by the previous Emperor, it would definitely cause problems. However, the Emperor was not the previous Emperor. He was not that suspicious. Moreover, in his opinion, this was Marquis Xianping's nature. If Marquis Xianping was not arrogant and despotic one day, then he would not be Marquis Xianping. Call Marquis Xianping to me, the Emperor said sternly. The people on the street had seen it with their own eyes. As the Emperor, he could not just sit and watch. Soon, Eunuch Wei brought Marquis Xianping into the palace. Your Majesty, this official is guilty. The first thing Marquis Xianping said after entering the imperial study was to admit his crimes. Then he confessed to his bullying of Imperial Tutor Zhuang and Royal Princeton. This series of actions stunned Imperial Tutor Zhuang. He had thought that Marquis Xianping would use the Emperor's favor to refuse to admit his crimes. Or Marquis Xianping would push the blame to him, and say that he used his status to suppress Xiao Lulang first. He was just helping out when he saw injustice. However, Marquis Xianping admitted his crimes just like that. Cough. The Emperor cleared his throat. Marquis Xianping was really always able to break through the bottom line of people's understanding of him. Forget it, he would get used to it. This person was shameless. Why would he not admit his crimes? If he did not admit his crimes, he would be beaten 100 times. If he admitted his crimes, it would be reduced by half. The emperor had long given up on treating Marquis Xianping. In the early years, he had thought that this person was an official of the imperial court that he regarded highly. His every word and action was related to the reputation of the imperial court, and also related to his face as the emperor. However, gradually, the people scolded Marquis Xianping only for himself, and did not rise to the imperial court. The emperor was too lazy to find trouble for himself. The emperor looked at Marquis Xianping and said seriously, "Seeing that you have a good attitude and actively admitted your crimes, I will punish you 50 times. In addition, your salary will be deducted for half a year." Marquis Xianping's face darkened. He could punish him with the plank, but he could not punish him with a salary penalty. Grand Tutor Zhuang was also not satisfied with this result. Their Zhuang family's face had been rubbed against by Marquis Xianping, but in the end, the emperor only punished him with a small salary penalty and a few planks. Marquis Xianping's family was extremely wealthy. What was half a year's salary to them? As for the planks, he was a martial artist. Hitting him with the plank was no different from tickling him. Grand Tutor Zhuang was so angry that his face was ashen. He clenched his fists so hard that they made cracking sounds. Marquis Xianping calmly walked out and glanced at Grand Tutor Zhuang. He clicked his tongue and sighed. "How old are you? Haven't you weaned? You still want to complain?" Grand Tutor Zhuang. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are also updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896428226/1097927110. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 475. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel was also updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels were read for free. There are all kinds of connotations that you can't find online here. When Marquis Xianping came out of the palace, he was surprised to find a familiar carriage parked nearby. It was Princess Xinyang's carriage. His brows furrowed. He wasn't sure if the other party had entered the palace or what. If they weren't here to find him, then there was no need for him to ask for a rebuff. Just as he was thinking this, the curtain of Princess Xinyang's carriage was lifted from the inside. Eugene bowed and got off the carriage, walking towards Marquis Xianping. "Marquis." Eugene bowed respectfully. "The princess wishes to see you." That was a rare sight. After being married for so many years, the number of days that Princess Xinyang came to see him could be counted on one hand. He basically did not look for her. Ever since she had made a request on their wedding night, he had only maintained a superficial relationship with her. Marquis Xianping pondered for a moment, but still boarded Princess Xinyang's carriage. Marquis Xianping's carriage was also extremely luxurious, but the details were not as exquisite as Princess Xinyang's carriage. Princess Xinyang's carriage was obviously a woman's carriage, fragrant and exceptionally exquisite. If it was 20 years ago, Marquis Xianping would not be able to find a place to stay. Now he was no longer the boorish fellow he used to be. He was also quite particular, elegant, calm and refined. Well, at least on the surface. Marquis Xianping sat down on the bench next to Princess Xinyang. He raised his eyes and glanced at her, asking, "Is something the matter?" The Duke of Xinyang opened his mouth, a trace of hesitation passing through his brows. Marquis Xianping did not rush her. He casually picked up an orange and played with it in his hand. After a while, Princess Xinyang finally opened her mouth. "When did you know that there was a problem with the dragon shadow guard by my side? You came looking for me just to ask this? Answer me." "Not long after Xiaoqing's accident," Marquis Xianping said honestly. "Did you find something?" "No. On the contrary, I didn't find anything. That's why I found it strange." Your dragon shadow guard has always been in the shadows, but you already knew. Yes. Xian Pingho did not deny it. From the first day Princess Xinyang married into the mansion, he had sensed several unusual auras in the dark. He had once felt a similar aura from the dragon shadow guard by the emperor's side, so he guessed that she also had a dragon shadow guard by her side. But their identities were confirmed on the night of Xiaoqing's accident. When he found out that the two children were poisoned, he immediately went to find the antidote. At that time, the emperor had an antidote pill from the Yan kingdom, which was said to be able to cure hundreds of poisons. Unfortunately, there was only one. Xiao Heng's mother did not hesitate to kidnap Xiaoqing in order to let him get the antidote. But when she was capturing Xiaoqing, she almost entered Princess Xinyang's room by mistake. At that time, a dragon shadow guard appeared and fought with her. At that time Princess Xinyang's voice interrupted Marquis Xianping's thoughts, but she seemed to be hesitant. Marquis Xianping weighed the orange in his hand and said, "If you want to ask, just ask. You don't have to consider whether I want to answer or not. If I don't want to answer, I will tell you directly." Princess Xinyang said, "After you confirmed that the dragon shadow guard was the one who killed Xiaoqing, did you think about revenge?" Marquis Xianping faintly twitched his lips. "Would you believe me if I said I didn't?" Princess Xinyang pursed her lips. "Then why didn't you take revenge?" Marquis Xianping said seriously. "First of all, they were only executioners. The one who gave the order was the late emperor. There were only two people who could order the dragon shadow guard. The late emperor and Princess Xinyang. It couldn't have been Princess Xinyang who gave the order to kill her own son. It wasn't hard to come to this conclusion, but it was hard to accept it." Marquis Xianping chuckled. "Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. If I wanted to take revenge, I would go find the late emperor. Why would I make things difficult for a few executioners who only followed orders? Only a coward would vent his anger on a few subordinates instead of finding their master." This arrogant tone sounded like Marquis Xianping. Princess Xinyang said, "Just because of this?" Marquis Xianping looked at her strangely and smiled. "What are you expecting, Qin Fengwan? Expecting me to tell you that it was because you still needed them, so I reluctantly kept them? Qin Fengwan, I don't have as deep feelings for you as you think." "That's good." Princess Xinyang let out a sigh of relief. Marquis Xianping looked at her with a faint smile and narrowed his eyes. Suddenly, he leaned over and placed one hand on her side, as if pinning her against the wall of the carriage. "Qin Fengwan, you look very disappointed?" Princess Xinyang turned her face away. "I'm not." Marquis Xianping smiled carelessly, with a hint of coldness and mockery. "It's too late to be disappointed. You were the one who rejected this marquis. Now even if you put down your status to beg this marquis will not be tempted by you." After saying this, he coldly returned to his original seat. "Then have you ever been tempted by me?" Princess Xinyang asked. Marquis Xianping's smile froze. "No," he said. "It's best if you haven't," Princess Xinyang said. "Don't like me. I won't like you." Marquis Xianping's expression turned cold. "Qin Fengwan, am I that bad?" Princess Xinyang lowered her eyes and tightly gripped her handkerchief under her wide sleeves. "It's not your problem. It's mine. I can't like any man." Marquis Xianping got off the carriage with a cold expression. Only when he was far away did Eugene get into the carriage. It was extremely difficult for Princess Xinyang to be alone with a man in this cramped space, even if this person was her husband of many years. She hid it very well on the surface, but the handkerchief in her hands had already been poked with several holes by her. "Princess, are you okay?" Eugene asked with concern. Princess Xinyang's face was smeared with a thick layer of makeup to cover her pale face. Otherwise, she would have been exposed long ago. "I'm fine." She took a deep breath. Although she said she was fine, her body began to tremble slightly. Eugene had always known that the princess had an unspeakable problem. She couldn't have normal contact with men, especially in cramped spaces. At her worst, she would suffocate. The reason why no one had discovered it before was mainly because she was a princess and had a noble status. If she didn't allow anyone to approach her, no one else could. Moreover, she was also very good at disguising herself. If Eugene hadn't seen her faint in the carriage with her own eyes, she feared that she wouldn't have known her secret. All these years, other than little Marquis, only Long Yi was allowed to stay close to her. Even the other 4 dragon shadow guards were not allowed to approach her without permission. In fact, after so many years, the princess's situation had already improved a lot. Last time, when she was in the same carriage with Marquis Xianping, she didn't have any discomfort. This time, could it be that Marquis Xianping took liberties with the princess? Jade Water Alley. The good news of Yao Shi's birth quickly spread in the alley. Everyone came to congratulate her one after another. Gu Yan and little Jing Kong each carried a basket of red eggs and went from house to hand them out. Marquis Gu didn't sleep the whole night and then looked after his son for the whole morning. At this moment, he was extremely tired and directly fell asleep beside Yao Shi. Yao Shi fed the child some milk and also couldn't resist the weakness of her body and fell asleep. In the end, she didn't have the energy like when she was young. At this time, Gu Jinyu came to Jade Water Alley. Last night, she was thrown out by Gu Jiao and was no longer able to enter the courtyard, so she returned to the Marquis's mansion first. Early in the morning, she heard the news from Huang Zhong that Yao Shi had given birth to a younger brother for her. She personally made soup to nourish Yao Shi's body. She carried the nourishing soup inside. "Mother, I'm here to see you." Mama Fong was bathing the little fellow. Hearing this, she raised her head and made a hush gesture. She whispered, "Madam is resting." "Ah." Gu Jinyu hurriedly covered her mouth with a guilty expression. There was a screen in front of Yao Shi's bed. Gu Jinyu stretched her head behind the screen to take a look. Yao Shi was sleeping very soundly. Marquis Gu was sitting on a chair with his upper body, lying on the edge of the bed. He was also sleeping soundly. She quickly retracted her gaze and put the food box in her hand on the table. She curiously went to the basin and squatted down. Looking at the little fellow who was being fiddled with by Mama Fong, she said, "He's so small." Mama Fong said, "He's not small. He's white and chubby. Don't you know how to speak? How is little master small? He's clearly a big fat boy." After Mama Fong finished bathing little master, she wiped him dry with a soft towel, put on some small clothes and wrapped him in swaddling clothes. He didn't cry or make a fuss during the entire process. He was very obedient. Gu Jinyu widened her eyes and asked, "Mama, can I hold little brother?" "Do you know how to hold him?" Mama Fong asked. Gu Jinyu nodded. "I do. I've held little cousin of the Ling family many times." Mama Fong hesitated for a moment, then carefully handed the child to her. Gu Jinyu gently took the child and smiled as she looked at the little fellow in swaddling clothes. At this moment, something incredible happened. The little fellow, who didn't even cry when bathing or changing diapers, suddenly cried at the top of his lungs. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. All the novels that can't be found online are available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1097912232. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 476. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that can't be found online here. Gu Jinyu was at a loss for what to do with the sudden crying. Nanny Fong was also shocked by the crying. Those who didn't know would think that Gu Jinyu was abusing the child. He was crying so heart-wrenchingly. Nanny Fong was rubbing the diaper, and her hands were wet. It wasn't appropriate for her to take the child, so she said to Gu Jinyu, "Put the young master in the cradle first." Gu Jinyu hurriedly put the child down. The child was crying too hard. Every cry sounded like someone was stabbing him with a needle. Gu Jinyu was so flustered that she lost her balance and stepped on the base of the cradle. She tripped and fell forward. The child in her hands also fell out. Ah! Her face turned pale. She wanted to catch the child, but it was too late. She fell hard on the ground. Her entire body was sore from the fall. One could imagine the terrible consequences of a newborn baby falling to the ground. At the critical moment, a blue figure flashed in and caught the baby that was about to fall to the ground at an extremely fast speed. The little fellow fell into a warm embrace, and his crying stopped abruptly. The little fellow opened his dark eyes wide and stared unblinkingly at the unfamiliar intruder. Nanny Fong heaved a sigh of relief. Second young master. Gu Jinyu endured the pain and stood up with the help of the cradle. She called out softly, "Second brother." Gu Qingfeng pinched the little fellow's face and nodded at Nanny Fong. He looked at Gu Jinyu and frowned. "Do you know how to carry a child?" Gu Jinyu's eyes reddened with grievance. "I didn't do it on purpose. I lost my balance." Gu Qingfeng originally had no feelings for Gu Jinyu. He didn't like her, but he didn't hate her either. He mostly ignored her. Now that he looked at her again, he didn't know why, but he kept comparing her with Gu Jiao. He felt that Gu Jinyu was a little lacking. If Gu Jiao was in the room today, she wouldn't have hurt the child no matter what. Gu Qingfeng ignored Gu Jinyu. He placed the little fellow in the cradle and opened the swaddling cloth to look at the little fellow's diaper. Realizing that the diaper was wet, he took a clean diaper from the table and quickly changed it for the little fellow. Even Nanny Fong couldn't compare to her speed in changing diapers. The little fellow seemed to be very comfortable after being swapped, and his little eyes narrowed in enjoyment. Gu Qingfeng's swaddling clothes were wrapped better than Nanny Fong's, who asked him to have a pair of godly hands. The dexterity of his hands was no less than that of a top surgeon. Of course, it was also because she always took care of Gu Qinglin when he was young, so she had some experience. Seeing that the second young master was so good at taking care of people, Nanny Fong felt relieved and went to rub the diapers. After she was done, she took all the diapers and clothes to the backyard to wash. Gu Jinyu looked at Gu Qingfeng, who was teasing the little fellow, and then looked at Nanny Fong, who left without saying a word. She felt that something was wrong. Nanny Fong and Gu Qingfeng didn't talk much. It seemed like they were neglecting each other, but it also seemed like they were used to Gu Qingfeng's appearance. "Does second brother come here often?" Gu Jinyu asked softly. Gu Qingfeng's fingers were firmly grasped by the little fellow. He didn't dare to pull his fingers out too forcefully for fear of hurting the little fellow. When he heard Gu Jinyu's question, he casually replied, "I've been here a few times. Most of the time, he came here to buy hair restorer. However, he also freeloaded a few meals, played a few rounds of cards, and lost some money to the old lady." Gu Jinyu saw that Gu Qingfeng was helpless because of the little fellow, and her eyes flickered. She said, "Second brother, are you also here to see mother?" Gu Qingfeng was actually here to buy hair restorer for Gu Qingfeng. He only knew that Madame Yao gave birth to a son when he saw Huang Zhong and Marquis Gu's carriage at the entrance. In terms of blood relations, this little fellow was his half-brother. He was just quite ugly. He was wrinkled and looked like a little monkey. "So ugly," he said disdainfully, not forgetting to poke the little fellow's face with his fingertip. He didn't know if it was because he felt Gu Qingfeng's disdain, or because Gu Qingfeng's finger hurt him, but the little fellow suddenly pouted and burst into tears. Gu Qingfeng shuddered. "Not ugly, not ugly. You're very pretty." The little fellow sniffled and pouted. "Second brother. Little brother likes you very much," Gu Jinyu said enviously. "He cries when I hug him. It's useless to coax him." How would a newborn know about liking or not liking? Although he said that, Gu Qingfeng unconsciously raised his brows. Did the little fellow like him more? The little fellow liked him? Really liked him? Ahem. Gu Qingfeng said seriously. "It must be because you don't know how to hug him. You're making him uncomfortable." What was so great about the little fellow liking him? He wasn't his half-brother from the same mother. He didn't care about his liking. Gu Jinyu was stunned. "Then, how do I hug him? Like this?" Gu Qingfeng gently picked up the little fellow and demonstrated for Gu Jinyu to see. Gu Jinyu thought to herself, "That's how I hugged him just now." Gu Jinyu refused to believe it and decided to hug him again. In the end, the little fellow cried the moment she held him, but Gu Qingfeng took him from her. It made Gu Jinyu extremely embarrassed. What was even more embarrassing was yet to come. When Gu Jinyu hugged him, he peed. When Gu Jinyu hugged him again, he pooped. But she didn't know how to change diapers. She couldn't wash the little fellows but clean and made the little fellow cry loudly. In the end, Gu Qingfeng couldn't stand it anymore and took the child. "All right, you can leave. There's nothing for you to do here." Gu Jinyu was no longer the pampered young lady from before. She had been to Ciu village and done hard work, but she had never taken care of such a small child. She was really helpless. Moreover, she didn't know if it was just her imagination, but this child didn't seem to like her. The three little men who didn't like him at home were completely confirmed when they returned home. Gu Qingfeng carried the child to the west room. The three little men came to play with him one by one. The little fellow was very lazy and basically ignored them. But he also wouldn't cry. He wouldn't cry no matter who hugged him, except for Gu Jinyu. When Madame Yao woke up, Marquis Gu had already been summoned to the yamen. Gu Jinyu sat by her bed with red and swollen eyes. She looked at Gu Jinyu's aggrieved and hurt expression and couldn't help but ask, "What's wrong?" Gu Jinyu said with red eyes, "Younger brother doesn't like me." Madame Yao said, "How could he not like you? Such a small child. What did he know about liking or not liking?" Gu Jinyu said aggrievedly, "It's true. He cries when I hug him. He doesn't cry when other people hug him." "Then it must be because you don't know how to hug him." Madame Yao's words were exactly the same as Gu Qingfeng's. Madame Yao had Nanny Fong carry her son over from the west room. After feeding the child, she handed him to Gu Jinyu. "Try again." Gu Jinyu tried again. Something inconceivable happened. The little fellow, who had been wailing in her arms, suddenly became very quiet. Madame Yao smiled and said, "See, isn't this quite good?" Gu Jinyu was dumbstruck. "But just now Madame Yao said. "Just now, you must have felt uncomfortable hugging him." Gu Jinyu swore that she really had hugged him like that. He felt extremely comfortable. He just wanted to cry. Gu Jinyu bit his lip. Madame Yao looked at Gu Jinyu's aggrieved and angry appearance, but he was also holding back. She sighed slightly and said earnestly, "Jinyu, I know you have complaints in your heart. When Yanner was young, he didn't like you. Whenever you approached him, he would cry. But that's because his older sister's aura had changed. You are very unfamiliar to him. He couldn't accept it, so he acted that way. Your second brother and Yen were born in different circumstances. He just came to this world. Jiao Jiao is his older sister, and so are you. As long as you treat him well, he will treat you like his own older sister. You must not be prejudiced against your second brother because of Yanner's matter." "Mother, I'm not." Gu Jinyu really had unspeakable bitterness. When had she ever been prejudiced against her second brother? It was clear that her second brother hated her. "I'm going out for a while." Madame Yao needed to go to the toilet. With Nanny Fong's help, she went to the washroom. Once she left, the little fellow in her arms pursed his lips. Gu Jinyu carried the little fellow and stood up with a whoosh. "Mother! He's crying again." Madame Yao and Nanny Fong returned. The little fellow's mouth was wide open, and he yawned. Madame Yao said, "He's just yawning." Gu Jinyu refuted. "No, he was clearly about to cry just now." Madame Yao sighed and said, "He's very obedient." "He's not obedient. He hates it to death." Gu Jinyu was at a loss for words. She swore that she had not seen wrongly. This little fellow was about to cry just now. But when Madame Yao returned, he stopped crying. At this time, Gu Jiao did not know that Gu Jinyu had been repeatedly humiliated by the little fellow. She had just come out of the medical center. The critically ill patients who had fought in the casino yesterday had just passed the critical stage, and were now being taken care of by Dr. Song and Dr. Liu. She went to the Liu residence. Liu Yixing was very surprised to see her. "Is it convenient to go in?" Gu Jiao asked. "Ah, it's convenient. Lu Yixing stepped to the side to let her in, and opened the courtyard door wider. A white figure darted out, and threw itself into Gu Jiao's arms. "Oh, little Shi." Gu Jiao hugged the heavy white cat ball. "You've gained weight again." Little Shi meowed. It was not fat at all. "Why are you here today?" Lu Yixing asked. "I'm here to look for Yuan Tang," Gu Jiao said. "Did you hear that, cousin? She's here to look for me." Accompanied by a hearty voice, Yuan Tang swaggered out of the central room while fanning himself with a folding fan. He stood in front of Gu Jiao and knocked the white cat's head with his fan. He snorted. "You heartless little thing. Why don't I see you being so enthusiastic when I come over?" Little Shi threw itself into Gu Jiao's arms and slapped Yuan Tang's butt. Lu Yixing looked at Yuan Tang with a cold gaze. Yuan Tang automatically ignored his cousin's piercing gaze and smiled at Gu Jiao. "Tell me, why are you looking for this prince? It better not be a matter between a man and a woman. Otherwise, cousin will get jealous. I promise cousin that I only have him in my heart." Lu Yixing really wanted to throw this guy out. "It's business," Gu Jiao said. Yuan Tang let out a sigh of relief. "Do you want to talk in the courtyard or in the house?" He spoke like a master. "Either is fine," Gu Jiao said. There were no outsiders in Lu Yixing's house. There was only a mute slave and an elderly nanny, both of whom were trustworthy. It was autumn today, so it was the best time to bask in the sun in the courtyard. They finally sat down on the stone bench. Yuan Tang and Gu Jiao faced each other, while Lu Yixing sat in between them. Lu Yixing was in no hurry to sit down. He went into his room and brought out a plate of fresh tangerines. Yuan Tang's eyes widened when he saw the plump and bright tangerines. "Cousin, you're too biased. Did you have so many delicious tangerines? I've been here for so long, but I haven't seen you take them out." After he said this, his handsome face became extremely bitter. He said to Lu Yixing, "Peel one tangerine for me, and I'll forgive you." Lu Yixing really did peel a tangerine, but it wasn't for him. "Nanny here." "Yuan Tang." "That hurts." Gu Jiao also peeled a tangerine and fed it to little Shi. She had never raised a cat before, so she didn't know if other people's cats ate tangerines. In any case, little Shi ate it. "Hey, didn't you say you wanted to talk to me about something? What is it?" Yuan Tang was hurt by his cousin's words, so his tone was gloomy. Gu Jiao said, "Do you know that Chen's army is heading southwest?" Yuan Tang's eyes suddenly flashed with vigilance. "Why are you asking this?" Gu Jiao fed another tangerine to the white cat on her lap. "Just tell me if you know." Yuan Tang gave Gu Jiao a deep look. He opened his folding fan and fanned himself. He raised his eyebrows and said, "Although I am a hostage here, I have spies. There was a mutiny at the Chen nation's border. My royal uncle led the army to quell the chaos." Gu Jiao removed the tangerine rings from the tangerine. "Quell it? What a good excuse." In the dream, Chen's army only headed southwest after the new year. In February they captured Princess Ning, and then the old duke. In March they captured Gu Qingfeng. In April, Gu Chongqing led 100,000 Gu soldiers north. In May, the frontier fortress was still covered in snow. In June, 80,000 Gu soldiers were annihilated. It was only October. It seemed that it was brought forward again. Yuan Tang frowned. "What do you mean?" Gu Jiao looked at him with pity and sighed. "It seems that you still don't know." This gaze made Yuan Tang frown even more. "What don't I know?" Gu Jiao looked away and continued to remove tangerine rings. "The two countries are going to war. As a hostage, you will soon lose your value." Yuan Tang closed his folding fan. Nonsense. These two sentences were nonsense. The reason why Chen sent its prince to Zhao as a hostage was to show its determination to surrender and ask for peace. If they dared to send troops to Zhao again, Zhao would definitely kill Yuan Tang. When Marquis Xianping sent troops to Chen, he first rescued in Junwang before sending troops. However, Chen's army had already advanced to the frontier fortress of Zhao, but Yuan Tang didn't make any moves. It was clear that Yuan Tang had been abandoned by Chen. To be more precise, he had been abandoned by his royal uncle of the state of Chen. Yuan Tang had always been good-tempered, but at this moment he couldn't help but get angry. Hey, don't talk nonsense here just because you have some friendship with me. You are trying to sow discord between my relationship with my father. Gu Jiao spread her hands. It has nothing to do with your father. It's your uncle who wants to rebel. You can't be the crown prince of Chen anymore. When Yuan Tang heard that it wasn't his father, he subconsciously felt less repulsed. However, he still frowned and asked, "Which uncle of mine?" Gu Jiao said, "How do I know which uncle is the one who led the troops to quell the rebellion?" In fact, she knew. However, she wanted to know if Yuan Tang knew. Yuan Tang pondered for a moment. Suddenly, he got angry. "Are you talking about Prince Bo's uncle? That's impossible. He and my father are of the same mother. He is my father's most trusted brother. Even if there's a rebellion, it's impossible for him to do so." "Is that so?" Gu Jiao raised her eyebrows. Yuan Tang firmly believed that his uncle wouldn't rebel. Besides, this time, my grandfather and uncle went with him. Even if my uncle wanted to rebel, they wouldn't sit idly by. Gu Jiao said, "Oh, what if they rebelled with your uncle?" Yuan Tang looked at Gu Jiao like she was a fool. "Why would my grandfather do that? What good would it do him?" Gu Jiao ignored his contempt and calmly said, "This is your Rong family's business. If it weren't for Prince Bo and the Rong family, how could the Gu family's army suffer such a big loss?" Yuan Tang felt that Gu Jiao was talking nonsense. "I don't believe it. Where did you hear this gossip? It's up to you to believe it or not." Gu Jiao didn't say anything. Originally, her purpose of coming here wasn't to make Yuan Tang believe anything, but to determine whether her dream was brought forward or not. Her purpose had been achieved. Out of morality, she gave him a kind reminder. It was best if he believed it, but if he didn't, she would think of another way and no longer care about him. "How's your finger?" Gu Jiao looked at Lu Yixing. Lu Yixing's eyes moved and said, "It's much better." "Let me see." Gu Jiao reached out her hand. Lu Yixing hesitated for a moment before putting his finger into her palm. She gently pinched the stitched wound. "Does it still hurt?" "It doesn't hurt anymore. It was a little itchy." Lu Yixing lowered his eyes. Gu Jiao hooked his finger. She was testing his strength. Lu Yixing clearly understood that her identity was only a doctor, but this action was too intimate for him. His breathing stopped for a moment. "Does it hurt?" Gu Jiao asked. No. Lu Yixing quickly denied it. "You've recovered quite well." Gu Jiao didn't think too much. She let go of Lu Yixing's hand and lowered her head to stroke her cat. She stroked until her eyes narrowed in enjoyment. Lu Yixing looked at this Gu Jiao. The young girl under the sun was bright and moving. She didn't show the slightest bit of fear because of the birthmark on her face. She lived openly, like the hottest sun in the sky. Gu Jiao stroked the cat until she was satisfied before standing up to leave. On the way, she kept thinking about the previous dynasty's remnants and the pirates on the sea. The two had happened at almost the same time. She felt that it wasn't a coincidence. It was like someone had deliberately stirred up trouble on the island to draw away Marquis Xianping. Afterwards, they moved against Marquis Ding and Fu and the Gu family army. This was a great conspiracy against the country of Zhao. Destroying the Gu family army was like cutting off an arm of the country of Zhao. However, Gu Jiao faintly felt that things weren't that simple. Those people's actions towards the old Marquis and Gu Chengfeng, as well as cutting off Gu Changqing's legs, were not as simple as destroying them. It was more like a strong form of revenge and humiliation. Had the Gu family offended the previous dynasty's remnants? Imperial concubine Jing was a remnant of the previous dynasty, but her death couldn't be considered the responsibility of the Gu family, right? Gu Jiao didn't understand the crux of the matter at the moment. Of course, it was also possible that the so-called revenge and humiliation was just a misconception. She just didn't know if the previous dynasty's remnants had really colluded with the pirates on the sea. She hoped that they hadn't. That way, the pirates wouldn't cause trouble earlier, and Marquis Xianping would still have time to head north. If Marquis Xianping headed north, the morale of the Chun army would drop by at least half. Unfortunately, reality was cruel. That very night, An urgent report came from Nanhai City. The pirates in Nanhai City had caused trouble, the island had been lost, and the governor of the navy had been killed. They were requesting reinforcements from the imperial court. When the news reached the imperial palace, the emperor and Gu Jiao were both at Rinshou Palace. Neither her grandaunt nor the emperor avoided Gu Jiao, allowing her to hear the report from the guard and their views on the matter. The emperor was at his wits' end. Governor Liao was killed, and the navy is without a leader. The deputy generals are too young to control the situation. The imperial court does have a few experienced generals, but they aren't familiar with the navy. I remember that Marquis Xianping served in the navy for a few years? Empress Dowager Zhuang asked. Ah yes. The emperor clearly just remembered. When he was young, he followed his uncle to Nanhai City to take up a post, and became the commander of the navy. If Marquis Xianping had stayed in Nanhai City, he could have become the governor of the navy. Unfortunately, he came back. He came back to marry Princess Xinyang. It was just that no one had expected that such a good marriage would end up like this. Actually, the emperor paused and explained Gu Chongqing's whereabouts. Gu Chongqing is near Fengdu Mountain, less than 10 days' journey from Nanhai City. Gu Chongqing had gone to Fengdu Mountain to take over the 30,000 imperial guards that the old marquis had secretly trained. That was the imperial family's life-saving talisman. Originally, it had been used to deal with Empress Dowager Zhuang. Now there was no need. However, he wouldn't use it lightly. Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't ask why Gu Chongqing had gone to Fengdu Mountain. She only continued the matter of Nanhai City. He has no experience with the navy, and his qualifications are too shallow. It will be difficult to convince the masses. There was a great difference between the navy and the army. Gu Chongqing was an outstanding army general, but his fighting style was not necessarily suitable for the navy. Furthermore, the navy was a local army. It was much more cunning than the army in the capital. It was common to overtly comply but covertly oppose, pulling people into the water, and using underhanded methods that made people unable to say anything. It really did take a tyrant and scoundrel like Marquis Xianping to let them see what it meant to be 1 foot tall, and the devil 10. The emperor nodded. Mother's words are very true. Gu Jiao listened to the side and understood that Marquis Xianping had gone south. Digression. There are still a few days until the new year. Hurry up and cast this year's monthly ticket. By next year it will be old. The latest chapter of this book is not finished. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896428226/1097644624. HTML Genius remembers this site's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 477. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. Gu Jiao came out of Rinshou Palace and happened to bump into Yujin, who had gone to greet Empress Xiao. Aunt Yujin. Gu Jiao greeted her. Yujin smiled in surprise. Dr. Gu, are you here to visit the Empress Dowager? Since Princess Xinyang had investigated Gu Jiao, it was impossible that she didn't know her relationship with Empress Dowager Zhuang. Gu Jiao nodded. Did the princess also enter the palace? She asked. No, only I entered the palace. The empress summoned me. The princess. Yujin smiled helplessly and didn't hide anything from Gu Jiao. The empress wanted to know about the young marquis, but the princess didn't want to talk about it. She said she was sick and stayed in the house. She told me to report to the empress. As for when the empress asked Yujin, Yujin only said she was a servant and didn't know anything. Empress Xiao could torture others, but not Yujin. First, Yujin didn't do anything wrong. Second, Yujin was Princess Xinyang's confidant. If Empress Xiao dared to touch her, Princess Xinyang wouldn't let it go. They were a family. There was no need to make a scene like that. The two walked towards the palace gate together. Gu Jiao didn't like to pry into other people's privacy, but after Yujin confirmed Xiao Liulong's identity, she didn't treat Gu Jiao as an outsider. She took the initiative to tell Gu Jiao. Actually, the princess and the empress aren't very close. She used the word close after careful consideration and beautification. In fact, the relationship between the two was very cold. The reason was that Marquis Xianping and Princess Xinyang didn't get along. As Marquis Xuanping's sister, Empress Xiao naturally wouldn't blame her brother. So she had some prejudice against Princess Xinyang. Princess Xinyang wasn't the kind of person who would kiss someone's butt. This led to the current situation between the two. Alas, Eugene sighed. Both the Empress and the Princess dote on the young Marquis very much. When the young Marquis was around, the two of them would occasionally talk to each other. Ever since the young Marquis got into trouble, the Empress and the Princess have not been in contact with each other much. The only time they met was when Princess Xinyang returned to the capital and entered the palace to greet the Emperor and Empress. However, this was not a sister-in-law relationship, but a formality between a ruler and a minister. Eugene and Gu Jiao didn't say this because they hoped that Gu Jiao would help them deal with anything, nor did they want to remind Gu Jiao not to say anything that Princess Xinyang didn't say to Gu Jiao. She was purely gossiping with Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao was a very good listener. First, there was Consort Rui Wang, and then there was Eugene. They were all very willing to share their worries with Gu Jiao. As the two of them chatted, they unknowingly arrived at the entrance of the palace. Gu Jiao had come in Xiao Sanzi's carriage. Unfortunately, Xiao Sanzi's carriage had broken down, and the wheels were a bit loose. He was currently squatting on the ground to fix it. Eugene said to Gu Jiao, "Dr. Gu, I'll send you back." Gu Jiao did not refuse. She said a few words to Xiao Sanzi and sat in Eugene's carriage. She could see that Eugene was still gossiping and still wanted to talk to her. After sitting in the carriage, Eugene thought of something and asked Gu Jiao, "That's right. Is the Marchioness about to give birth?" Gu Jiao said, "She already gave birth." Eugene was startled and asked, "Didn't you say next month? She gave birth so quickly? Is it a son or a daughter? Is everything all right?" This all clearly included Yao Shi as well. Gu Jiao nodded gratefully. "It's a son. Both mother and child are safe." Eugene smiled happily. "That's great. This joyous news must be told to the princess. Dr. Gu, do you mind going to Vermilion Bird Street?" "All right," Gu Jiao said. Eugene was not someone who only knew how to gossip about her own matters. She was also very concerned about Gu Jiao's situation. On the road, she asked almost all of the questions related to the little fellow and Yao Shi. Gu Jiao did not speak much and answered very concisely. People who did not understand her would think that she was being perfunctory. However, Eugene understood that she answered every question seriously. Eugene liked this kind of girl. She did not play tricks, did not flatter, and did not act courteously. All of her friendliness and appreciation were hidden in her details. The carriage entered Vermilion Bird Street. Eugene lifted the curtain to take a look, and discovered that there seemed to be a carriage parked in front of her courtyard. That carriage looks a little familiar," Eugene muttered to herself. Gu Jiao followed her gaze and said, "It's Marquis Xianping's carriage." This carriage would occasionally appear at the medical clinic, the Imperial College, and Jade Water Alley. Gu Jiao had long memorized its appearance. Eugene was even more confused. Why would the Marquis come here? Based on their relationship as husband and wife, they would usually find someone to pass on a message. The number of times they would actively seek each other out could be counted on one hand, especially for Marquis Xianping. He probably understood that Princess Xianyang did not want to see him, so he never went in front of Princess Xianyang to ask for a rebuff. In reality, Marquis Xianping was just passing by today. He did not plan on finding Princess Xianyang. However, he heard Princess Xianyang's pitiful cries. It seemed that something had happened. He followed the sound to the attic of the study. Princess Xianyang was sitting on the ground. Her right foot was pressed down by a fallen bookshelf. The attic was cramped. She could not retreat or stand up. Marquis Xianping bowed and entered the attic. With Princess Xianyang's height, she could stand up straight at the highest point in the attic, but Marquis Xianping was too tall. He had to crouch the entire time. He removed the heavy bookshelf and the books that had fallen to the ground. Blood was seeping out of her shoes. It seemed that she had suffered a serious injury. Marquis Xianping frowned. How come I don't see your dragon shadow guards? Are they all incompetent? He had rushed over from the streets. Although he was not very slow, the distance was there. During this time, her dragon shadow guards had the time to rescue her. It was funny. She knew that someone would save her, but she still came. But the dragon shadow guards that should have appeared did not appear. This made Marquis Xianping not know what to say for a while. Should he say that fortunately he came? How could Princess Xianyang know that so many thoughts flashed through his mind? Long Yi had gone out to handle some matters. As for the other 4 dragon shadow guards, she did not bring them to the capital. Seeing that she did not answer, Marquis Xianping did not force her to answer. He knelt down on one knee, intending to look at her injuries. However, she suddenly said, "Don't come over." Fine. Although they were husband and wife, they had only slept together once in so many years. Being together with her, he still had to talk about the difference between men and women. Fuck. Your injuries are not light, Marquis Xianping said. With this amount of blood, there was at least an inch-long wound. Marquis Xianping thought about it. Saving people was more important, so he still had to get her down. Marquis Xianping reached out to carry her. Princess Xianyang's reaction was even greater. She suddenly dodged to the side. Marquis Xianping's hand froze in midair. He looked at her strangely and said, "I'm just carrying you down. I have no other intentions. You make it seem like this Marquis wants to take advantage of you." This loft was too small, so small that she had nowhere to retreat to. The distance between them was also too close, so close that she was surrounded by his masculine scent. Her face paled, and her forehead began to seep out fine beads of cold sweat. Marquis Xianping quickly sensed her abnormality. His thick brows knitted even tighter, and he said impatiently and self-deprecatingly, "Qin Fengwan, this Marquis does not eat people." Princess Xianyang did not answer him. At first, Marquis Xianping thought that she disdained to talk to him, but he gradually discovered that her body was trembling and her lips were pale. "Qin Fengwan." He looked at her inquiringly. Don't come over. I'm begging you," Princess Xianyang said in a pleading tone. Marquis Xianping had known Princess Xianyang for so many years, but he had never seen her lower her voice to anyone. Strictly speaking, she was not lowering her voice right now, but she was sincerely begging him not to come near her. "Do you hate me that much?" Marquis Xianping stared at her and instantly denied this thought. Compared to disgust, it was more appropriate to say that her reaction was fear. Marquis Xianping didn't understand what he had to be afraid of. Last time, she had chased him down from the roof on the street, and he had personally caught her. Wasn't she fine? She had even coldly ordered him to put her down. Where did her arrogance go? Although Marquis Xianping had doubts in his heart, Princess Xianyang's condition was not optimistic. Marquis Xianping seriously suspected that if he didn't go out, she would suffocate here. Marquis Xianping went down the loft. Coincidentally, Yujin and Gu Jiao entered the courtyard at this time. "Marquis." Yujin bowed. Marquis Xianping looked at her, and then at Gu Jiao beside her. "The princess is in the loft. She's injured. Go take a look." There was only the study and loft in the entire courtyard. After hearing Marquis Xianping's words, Yujin didn't care about anything else and hurriedly took Gu Jiao to the loft. When Princess Xianyang saw the two of them, she secretly sighed in relief. The suffocating dizziness finally subsided. "Princess." Yujin knelt by her side and supported her, letting her lean into her arms. Gu Jiao examined Princess Xianyang's wounds. They were all superficial wounds. There were 2 wounds in total, and one of them was a bit deep. Gu Jiao took out a small medicine box from the small basket on her back and took out some disinfectant to clean the wounds. Princess Xian Yang's complexion was very poor. Gu Jiao originally thought it was because of the pain, but when she disinfected her wounds, her complexion actually improved a bit. So it wasn't because she was afraid of pain. Is the princess feeling unwell somewhere else? Gu Jiao asked. When she first came in, Princess Xian Yang's complexion looked as if she couldn't breathe. Princess Xian Yang was extremely intelligent. How could she not know why Gu Jiao asked this question? She lowered her eyes, her eyelashes trembling. She shook her head and said, "No, I'm much better." Gu Jiao's hand, which was wrapping gauze around her, paused. "Okay, don't let the wounds get wet." After treating Princess Xian Yang's wounds, Gu Jiao carried her down the loft. When they returned to the room, Yujin took out clean clothes for Princess Xian Yang to change into. Marquis Xianping didn't leave. He hesitated, but still went to Princess Xian Yang's room. Gu Jiao left, and Yujin went to see her off. Inside the room, Princess Xian Yang sat on the soft bed, her back leaning against the cushion at the head of the bed. She was reading a book, bored to death. Her complexion had recovered, and there was no trace of her previous embarrassment. "Is something the matter?" Princess Xian Yang glanced at him and said lightly, "Fine, she's back to the old Xian Yang." Marquis Xianping pulled a chair over and sat beside her bed. He looked at her without blinking. "Qin Fengwan, what's wrong with you?" Princess Xian Yang didn't look at him. Her gaze was still on the book of poems she was reading. "What do you mean what's wrong with me?" Marquis Xianping stared straight at her face, not letting go of any of her subtle expressions. "You weren't right in the loft." Princess Xian Yang said perfunctorily, "I was in pain." "You call that pain?" Marquis Xianping furrowed his brows impatiently and pointed at himself. "Or do you think that after fighting for half my life, I can't even differentiate between pain and fear? You're afraid of me, Qin Fengwan." Princess Xian Yang pursed her lips. Marquis Xianping was puzzled. "I didn't do anything to you, right? Do you need to be so afraid of me? I don't usually see you being afraid. You're not afraid now either, so why are you so afraid just in the loft?" As if to confirm his guess that she wasn't afraid of him, he leaned in front of her. Princess Xian Yang didn't speak. Marquis Xianping's gaze moved from her face to her hands. She was holding the book, and her knuckles were faintly white. Marquis Xianping sat back on the chair and distanced himself from her. He didn't think he had done anything to arouse her wariness. Between them, she was the one who was ready to raise her butcher's knife at any time. She was the one who wasn't allowed to touch him, and she was the one who took the initiative to touch him. But she was even afraid of him, and she was only afraid in the loft. Marquis Xianping narrowed his eyes and asked seriously, "Did someone bully you, Qin Fengwan?" "I'm tired." Princess Xian Yang closed the book of poems in her hands and tactfully asked him to leave. Marquis Xianping wanted to ask more, but Steward Lu's voice came from the courtyard. Marquis, Her Majesty summons you." Marquis Xianping felt Princess Xian Yang's body relax when she heard this. He looked at her deeply. She raised her chin and stubbornly held on like a proud peacock, but her slightly trembling eyelashes and bloodless lips betrayed her. Marquis Xianping's eyes darkened. He stood up and looked at her. His hands didn't stop moving as he put the chair back to its original position. "Qin Fengwan." He called her name, but she didn't respond. He retracted his gaze with a complicated expression, turned around and walked out. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1097399991. HTML Genius will remember this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com Chapter 478. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are all available here. When Marquis Xianping entered the palace, he received an imperial edict to go south immediately. The emperor appointed him as the Southern Patrol Imperial Envoy, temporarily acting as the governor of the South Sea City Navy. He must eliminate the bandits as quickly as possible and at the lowest cost, and take back the South Sea City Island. Marquis Xianping led 500 light cavalry out of the capital that night. Chang Jing was also in the ranks. After Gu Jiao came out of Princess Xinyang's residence, she took the carriage arranged by Yujin and returned to Jishui Alley. The house was very lively. The neighbors all came to see the baby. This really was a well-behaved and beautiful baby. Eunuch Qin and Eunuch Wei also came. Gu Jiao entered the palace this time to report the good news to her grandaunt and the emperor. Because of the bandits at sea, the two elders had gathered their important officials overnight for a meeting. They could not personally visit the baby in Jishui Alley, so they let Eunuch Qin and Eunuch Wei come. You've been holding him for an hour. Let me hold him too. In the west room, Eunuch Qin said to Eunuch Wei with hidden bitterness. Eunuch Wei turned his back to avoid Eunuch Qin's outstretched claws. He rudely said, "No." He snatched it first. And he snatched it from Sixth Aunt's hands. Heaven knows how much he paid for it. You can come again next time. Eunuch Wei was determined not to give up the baby. Eunuch Qin was so angry that he ground his teeth. Little guy, after following the emperor, did he forget who was the #1 eunuch in the harem? Eunuch Wei did not care. If he did not want to give it up, he would not give it up. Eunuch Qin could not snatch it up. If he hurt the baby, wouldn't Empress Dowager Zhuang twist his head? Eunuch Qin tempted. Let me hold him. Later, I'll send Daquan over for you to play with for 2 days. Daquan was Eunuch Qin's little tortoise. Eunuch Wei had been eyeing him for a long time. Eunuch Wei said without hesitation, "Go, go, go. With a baby, who would want your tortoise?" The main reason was that he coveted Eunuch Qin's tortoise, not for fun, but to stew tortoise soup. In the end, Eunuch Qin failed to snatch Eunuch Wei, which made Eunuch Wei, who had always been suppressed by Renshou Palace, feel proud and elated. The battle for the treasure only ended when little Jing Kong came back from the Imperial College. Once little Jing Kong appeared, the two of them basically had no chance. Who could snatch it from him? Little Jing Kong did not know how to carry a baby. He placed the baby in the cradle. It was worth mentioning that he was not as tall as the cradle, so he had to move a small stool and stand on it to look at his little brother. Disciple's nose is like mine, my mouth is like mine, my eyes are like mine, and my eyebrows are like mine. Little Jing Kong puffed up his chest, shook his head, and said proudly, "What a handsome little man." Everyone. At the end of the day, you just want to praise yourself, right? During postpartum confinement, babies only ate and slept, so they did not respond well to little Jing Kong's teasing. Little Jing Kong played for a while, then his little brother lost interest, and went back to the alley for a walk. Yao Shi temporarily lived in the East Room. She did not have enough breast milk, so Auntie Lu introduced her to a wet nurse. The wet nurse was an honest person. She was a few years younger than Yao Shi, and gave birth around the same month as her sister-in-law. So she handed her child over to her sister-in-law to feed. She moved over and lived in Yao Shi's original room. She mainly fed the child at night. If the child did not have enough to eat during the day, she would eat 1 or 2 more meals. Little Jing Kong was the happiest when he learned that Gu Jiao would be sleeping in the west room later. I can sleep with Jiao Jiao. He washed himself until he smelled good, combed his buzz-cut hair until it was shiny, and went to the west room valiantly. Jiao Jiao, I'm coming. He kicked off his shoes and climbed onto the bed. Unexpectedly, before he could climb onto the bed, he was lifted up by his bad brother-in-law. Xiao Heng said, "Go sleep with great-granduncle." Little Jing Kong struggled and said, "I don't want to. I don't want to. I want to sleep with Jiao Jiao." Even if he did not want to, he had to. Little Jing Kong was mercilessly dragged to the next room by his bad brother-in-law. When Gu Jiao returned to the west room after her shower, the quilt on the bed was already made. There was only one bed. Little Jing Kong was not there, but Xiao Heng was there. However, he was packing his own sleeping clothes. "Aren't you going to sleep?" Gu Jiao asked. She had just taken a shower and hadn't had time to dry her hair. She wrapped a piece of dry cotton cloth around her head, leaving only a strand of wet hair hanging by her ear. Sparkling and translucent water droplets dripped onto her fair neck. It was a little tempting. Xiao Heng coughed softly and looked away. He looked at the sleeping clothes in his hands and said, "Jing Kong and I will sleep over there." Gu Jiao looked at the bed in the west room. Well, the bed was indeed a little small for 3 people. Actually, it was not a matter of whether the bed was small or not, but Xiao Heng looked at her body that was getting better day by day. It was especially hard to calm down in the dead of night. He took a deep breath and eliminated the thoughts that were surging in his sea of consciousness. He said seriously, "It's getting late. You should rest early. Remember to dry your hair." "Okay." Gu Jiao nodded and took the cotton towel off her head. Her long black hair fell down and covered her shoulders, which made her delicate skin as white as snow. Xiao Heng only took one look at her, and felt his blood boil. He was worried that he would do something irreversible if he did not leave now. "I'm going over." After saying that, he quickly walked out of the room and almost fled. Gu Jiao made a strange sound. "You're leaving so quickly. I still want to ask you about the princess." Princess Xian Yang's reaction in the attic was clearly abnormal. Her first reaction was claustrophobia, but if she had claustrophobia, why would she go to the attic? Why would she be fine sitting in a carriage? Gu Jiao could not understand. "Jiao Jiao, are you asleep?" It was Yao Shi's voice. Gu Jiao put down the cotton towel in her hands and walked over to open the door. "I'm not asleep. Why did you get out of bed?" "It's fine. I'm fine. I also got out of bed to walk around during the day." Yao Shi's labor this time took longer than last time, but the process was not as painful. "Come in. It's cold outside," Gu Jiao said to Yao Shi. Yao Shi entered the room and sat down on the bed. She pulled her daughter's hand and warmly said, "Your second brother came by." Gu Jiao made a no sound and said, "He came to buy hair growth medicine." Did Gu Qinglin run out of hair growth medicine again? Had he used it too quickly? "He also came to give you something." As Yao Shi spoke, she handed the brocade box in her hands to her. Gu Jiao took the brocade box. "This is from him?" Yao Shi smiled and nodded. "I don't know what it is." "Open it and take a look." Gu Jiao opened the box. Inside was a bag of dried meat. It was Gu Jiao's favorite flavor. Gu Jiao normally did not express her preferences. It was only Xiao Heng who was careful enough to notice that she liked dried meat. Had she ever eaten it in front of Gu Qingfeng? Gu Jiao did not have any recollection of it. "Your 3 brothers." Yao Shi wanted to say something but stopped. She did not know what to say. She and the 3 sons that the previous madam had left behind had indeed been very unhappy, but that was all in the past. Moreover, they had been bewitched by concubine Mother Ling. What could little children understand? It was nothing more than what the adults taught them. It was true that there were some things that she could not forgive, but sometimes she had to learn to accept and accept. They had hurt Gu Yan, but they had also saved Gu Yan. If it was not for the fact that she had to distinguish which of the 3 brothers had done the most wrong, and which of them had done the most, it was meaningless. No matter what, they were her daughter's blood relatives in this world. If there came a day when they, the elders, were no longer around, her daughter would at least have her older brothers to love her. Gu Jiao raised her eyebrows and said, "All right. Since he gave me a gift, next time I'll sell him the hair growth agent at a cheaper price." Yao Shi could not help but smile. Over the next few days, Gu Jiao frequently went in and out of the imperial palace. She wondered if she should remind her grandaunt that there might be a lot of Qin country's soldiers at the border. Reality proved that Empress Dowager Zhuang was able to command the court for many years without relying on a trace of luck. The moment Empress Dowager Zhuang discovered the bandits in Nanhai City, she immediately sent a messenger pigeon to Tang Yushan, telling him to investigate the movements of the Qin country's army. Tang Yushan's messenger pigeon arrived at Renshou Palace 5 days later. The letter said that after Tang Yushan received Empress Dowager Zhuang's message, he immediately led people to infiltrate the Qin country's border, and discovered that the Qin country had secretly brought 80,000 soldiers. The Qin country's border was in chaos. Logically, 10,000 soldiers should have been enough. Why did they need 80,000? Empress Dowager Zhuang immediately guessed that they were going to war with the Zhao country again. This time, they had chosen to do it near the border. It was highly likely that they had colluded with the remnants of the previous dynasty of the Zhao country. Inside Renshou Palace, after hearing Empress Dowager Zhuang's analysis, the emperor frowned. Yuan Tang is still in the Zhao country. Is the Qin country's ruler crazy? He doesn't even want his own son's life. Guards! Arrest Yuan Tang for Zhen. Not long after, eunuch he came to report. Your Majesty, Yuan Tang has escaped. The emperor angrily said. Escaped? Seal the city gates for Zhen. Zhen wants to see where he can run to. Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't care much about Yuan Tang. Since the Qin country dared to send troops at this juncture, it meant that they had given up on Yuan Tang. It didn't matter whether they arrested him or not. She pinched her sore eyebrows, stood up, and paced back and forth in the room. Qin country's 80,000 soldiers and the remnants of the previous dynasty's 50,000 soldiers. She closed her eyes. The border was in danger. What happened next confirmed Empress Dowager Zhuang's guess. Urgent news from the border. Princess Ning was arrested. The old duke was also arrested by the remnants of the previous dynasty in order to save Princess Ning. The Qin country's army entered the border. Tang Yushan's army was defeated. The border lost 3 cities in a row. 3 cities in a row. There were only 21 cities in the Zhao country. Empress Dowager Zhuang's eyes were cold. Her phoenix robe fluttered in the evening wind. Pass my decree. Summon Gu Chongqing back to the capital immediately. Reorganize the Gu army and go north to fight the enemy. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1097383331. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.